Hello again, friends! You wanted a theme song? There you go. And you are our friends, and welcome back to another edition of Jim Cornette's Drive-Thru. I felt that one in my back.
Oh, don't strain yourself.
We're gonna have fun today. It's a fun edition of the Drive-Thru. I'm your host, the great Brian Last. I'm in a world of pain. And here he is, the man who enjoys that pain, the star of our show, Mr. Jim Cornette.
I can feel your pain. See, already you have, in the intro, you have beat me to the malingering punch because you are already, Brian Last, both of us are in some way hampered here with a medical condition. I haven't even got a chance to jump into mine yet before there you go with yours. You have thrown out your back foolishly because you obviously weren't finished with it when you threw it out. And you're in pain, and when you hit the high notes, when you overture curtain lights, you're hurting yourself, you're feeling the pain, but you're still here. But you're already trying to get the jump on me for giving an excuse for a substandard performance, and I resent that highly. I resemble that remark.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you. Why am I thanking you?
It's my show.
Oh, that's a loophole, isn't it?
You see how that works?
But it's freezing cold. I am freezing. I'm cold. I'm cold down to the bone. Brr, chills and shivers. Because winter has suddenly fallen upon us down here, and I'm a little snurfly. I'm a little croupy or little phlegmy or whatever. I think I'm going to be all right. I don't think I'm going into full-fledged resuscitation mode or anything where I'll need to be intubated. But it's miserable weather. You remember we went from, see how I'm going to switch this over to my malingering and try to get some sympathy anyway, after the people already know that you're ready to be taped to a backboard and sent into orthopedic surgery. But
a guy? Do you have someone?
Actually, there's somebody I would recommend. But you'd have to come down here, and then there's a warehouse over in Sellersburg.
Warehouse? Yeah,
a guy does it, but evenings and weekends. But you can't turn your headlights on when you pull in the parking lot, but he'll fix you right up. Oh. But anyway, back to me and my health. Because I'm going to turn in a substandard performance here, and I want an excuse. Ah! You see there? Ah! Ah! Ah!
That was your excuse? I need an excuse. Ah! See, I'm obviously sick.
I'm at death's door and ringing the bell. Oh. Someone's knocking on the door. Somebody's ringing the bell. So not only did we had a blizzard here yesterday. We had a blizzard because it was cold and gloomy all day, and the wind was blowing, and the wind chill never got out of the 20s, I don't believe. And then it right as the sun set, and it was dark out down, it starts a snowflaking, and the wind blowing, and the snow, and the mulch beds under the trees were covered up in white, like big white donuts. You could see them a mile away, and it was cold, brutally cold. And that has led to my bones aching. And actually, Hotchkiss Featherbottom, in addition to having pneumonia last week, now he's thrown his back out. And Stacy has a perpetual bad back. So of the 3 human beings that I've communicated with today, I'm the oldest one, and I'm the only one who can carry anything. How the fuck did this work? Shouldn't I be in some kind of motorized cart by now with people fetching and carrying for me? But I digress. I'm trying to be a hillbilly Jack Parr. I'm going to tell a boring-ass story, but I'm going to make it entertaining. So this has been coming on since I'm going to tell you something that I did the other day, Brian, that you do not even know happened.
Oh.
And this is what has brought on my overall, my cold and my chills, and I got the aches, and my bursitis is flaring up and things like that the old people get. Because I remember we lived in an arid desert here for 30 days. It was the driest month in the history of the city of Louisville. And then suddenly, Halloween trick or treat, it started raining. And it's been rained inches at a time, sometimes for days at a time since then, over and over. And we're like in one of the wettest months now that we've ever had here. And I must digress to tell you that the people, I think, know that even though that the Feather Bottoms have taken over a lot of the work at Cornette's
They've
Collectibles.
taken over, that's for sure.
Well, they've taken over a lot of the work off of my old dreary bones here. I've still got boxes and boxes of action figures in my garage because I'm in the process of autographing all of them, and we'll talk good news about us filling all the orders later on. And so I park Black Beauty out in the driveway most of the time because I got all these boxes of action figures, right? Well, usually when it's going to rain and I have to go out in the morning, if it's going to rain or whatever, I will move shit around and I'll put the truck in the garage. But a couple of days ago, I knew it was going to rain overnight, but it was not going to rain when I was going to go out. So I didn't figure I needed to put the truck in the garage. I left it parked down the driveway. You follow me so far?
I hear what you're saying. I'm not really following, but yeah.
Well, there's a point to this. So what I didn't realize also, and I must digress again I remind the listeners.
You've digressed 3 times in the same digression.
Well, yes, because they've got to understand the story of why this has happened. The listeners may know, if they've been around for a while, that Black Beauty is a 2007 Ford Expedition. It's got 302,000 miles on it. And there's no reason for me to get a new vehicle because I only drive 25 miles a week. And Stacy's got a brand new car. It's got all this computerized bells and whistles and shit and cameras. I wouldn't try to drive it for $1 million. But she's happy with that. And I got my old comfortable Expedition, right? Now, a couple years ago, the door handle on the inside of the driver's door broke off. Well, it's not like it's a major goddamn inconvenience. So when I go somewhere, when I get there, I roll the window down, I open the door from the handle on the outside, and I roll the window back up, right? And then go on about my day, free to pursue a life of religious freedom. And that's, it hasn't been a problem up until now. But the other day when I went out, and I said, I don't need to put it in the garage because it's going to rain overnight, but it's not going to rain. Well, it wasn't raining when I was going out. But the last time that I had parked it there, when I'd rolled the window down, I'd forgotten to roll the window back up after I opened the door. So this torrential fucking overnight rain had rained into the goddamn window that was all the way open of the door of the driver's side of the fucking vehicle. That created an inconvenience because it was a cold morning. And I had to sit out there with towels trying to dry all the inside of the shit that I was going to sit in. And then I sit down in the seat and go squish, because it's all fucking soaked. And I was afraid to try to turn the seat heater on because it was wet. I was afraid I was going to electric chair myself and fry myself right behind the wheel. So I had to go all the way over to do what I was doing and come back in a wet, cold, squishy seat, which I believe now has led me possibly on the road to pneumonia. But do you care? No, you jump right in front of me with a painful back ailment.
Are you finished? I can't tell.
I just made that comment.
You indeed made that comment. I didn't jump in front of anyone. I ain't doing any jumping for a while.
Well, Professor X, get you a chair and damn emanate your brain waves out to people. But anyway, speaking of action figures in my garage, you want me to get that out of the way? I can do that right now if you're gonna be that way and dominate the whole program and try to get all the sympathy. This is the period of time now officially where from now until December the 3rd, the Midnight Express Collector's Edition action figure 4-pack set with collectible book, autographed 8x10, and certificate of authenticity is on sale for $40 off, which is the best deal you're ever going to get on that bad boy. And Hotchkiss Featherbottom has done a wonderful job fighting through his pain with these sales inventions of his. And everybody, as a matter of fact, we are now within 2 weeks of turnaround of signing all this stuff, and we have fought and scratched and clawed Claude Patterson to where if you ordered anything through November 13th, it has been handed to the Featherbottoms, and they were processing it on the day before Thanksgiving or thereabouts, because I don't know when people will hear this. But nevertheless, $40 off the Midnight 4-pack. And if you buy any of the tag team sets, you get the new and final Jim Cornette variant for half price as a holiday gift to all the people at JimCornette.com, as well as the regular cast of all kinds of wonderful T-shirts and merchandise that you can peruse at your convenience at the aforementioned JimCornette.com. And all this through possible pneumonia here from a squishy seat and blizzard-like conditions. It was like I was stuck in the Arctic on an exploration expedition. We could have been cut off from the world here with that blizzard last night, Brian, and you don't care.
How much snow did you get?
Well, it dusted the mulch beds.
Blizzard? Has anyone else called it a blizzard?
Well, the wind was blowing really hard, and the snowflakes was going all over. It looked like a snow globe. It was just chaos. I was afeared for my life.
Is a snow globe depicting a blizzard or just a heavy wind that occasionally comes up when you shake it and blows the snow everywhere?
Well, it depends on how many times you have to shake it as when you're blowing it. But I'll tell you this, if you're no meteorologist.
I'm certainly not one of those, no.
So who are you to dispute my description of the snowstorm I was in, the blinding condition, the whiteout that we suffered here? We had to hook Harley up to a sled just to make sure we could escape if it came to it.
When did this happen?
Last night.
Last night.
Uh-huh.
As we are recording, it is snowing here at Last Manor.
Oh, now you got to another one of my stories you got to jump in on.
I'm not jumping in. I'm jumping behind, technically, on this one. Because you already told your story.
Well, how much snow?
Your exciting story.
How many inches have you got up there, Brian?
Just a trace, just a drizzle of snow. It's sticking, but not much.
We're back to measuring snow now. I wasn't sure which question you were answering.
Well, I guess the point is, you had a snowstorm, and obviously it affected you deeply.
Yes.
It's snowing here now. My back is out.
Yes.
Yet,
you're saying we're done with the show?
Well, what I'm saying is all of these awful things happened after one of the most sorry excuses for a wrestling show / a go home to a pay-per-view show I have ever seen. And I've said it the last several weeks. And boy, this is without Jimmy Jacobs on the writing team. Look at what everything's become, by the way. But it's becoming more and more fascinating by the week to watch this show. Because you're watching a show fall apart. Not a talent. You're watching an entire show fall apart in front of, you know, I don't think people really give Orange Cassidy enough credit for the influence he has had, because he influenced the entire fan base to have this apathetic, who gives a fuck reaction to everything happening on the show. Another dead crowd. But I hate to jump ahead of anything, but why don't we start things off getting a good mood by talking about another astounding episode of AEW Dynamite.
Well, it was a go-home show. Because the people sitting in the arena were just thinking, how long till I can go home? And the people actually, did you hear that all the Nielsen families that were tuned into the fucking show, they moved. They listed their fucking house. They said, fuck it, we're done here too. So they didn't want to make that mistake again. But I gotta start with, before we even talk about what was the content of the program, let's talk about the opening of the program, because let's talk about some double standards, shall we? Here, ladies and gentlemen. I saw some rumblings on the Twitter that and some of the news sites retweeting that Tony Khan, or AEW, however they phrased it, the entity All Elite Wrestling, had done or got the rights to November Rain by Guns N' Roses, and we're doing the video, and of course everybody fondly remembers, this is the story they're telling, the November Rain video in ECW from, and Brian, again, you're the savant on 90s dates. Was that 1994?
When Paul Heyman used the video?
Yes.
He used it a few years in a row. He may have started in 94. He was definitely using it in 95. Obviously, the song came out. It was on Use Your Illusion. What was that, 91, 92?
So 91, 92. But Paul used it several years because of his November big event that he would have, November to Remember, whatever the case.
Paul Heyman, at times without paying any royalties or publishing fees or anything else, seemingly.
Yes, nothing.
But Paul Heyman, for that era, used that era's music perfectly for his wrestling.
Yes.
And obviously that was a big influence on Tony Khan.
Well, and that's the thing, because that's why people fondly remember that, because of the ECW show. That's the thing. Paul was, editing on VHS sometimes and whatever the fuck, but he could put shit together in post. That was what he was the ultimate master at. And make those moments and those feelings in November Rain, and he had highlights of all of his top programs and blah, blah, blah. And so they've done, they've got the rights, but did this strike you as the epic, the drama of the November Rain ECW videos, even as I remember them? It's not like I've watched them over and over the past 30 years. Or was this just a lot of people taking bumps with short on explanation of why any of those people want to fight, and a little bit of November Rain? You tell me. You're more of an expert of that era's programming than I am. But first of all, did this live up to those as a tribute video? And then I'll raise my other point.
No, this was really poorly done. And, there's two different ways to do it. With ECW, very often, Paul would actually intersplice the actual video in. So it wasn't just the song. You would actually get, a few seconds of Mikey Whipwreck, and then, hey, there's Beck. It was,
yeah,
that was the kind of thing that happens sometimes on ECW. So, Salt and Pepper were on ECW a bunch in 94. I bet they don't know about that. They were on a whole bunch. But I think it was all over the place. You couldn't, if you didn't already know exactly what was going on, and we don't even know that, you couldn't follow, because it was just, here's a few seconds of this feud. Now here's some of this stuff. And now here's this stuff. And as it's happening, I don't think they realize the effect is you're seeing one by one the card play out, and you're like, ooh, oh no. It's getting worse and worse what you realize is coming your way. And it didn't hit as a video. I think a big miss.
Okay, that's a good phrase that you just emitted there in your pain and agony. It didn't hit as a Paul shit hit as a video. This was like a compilation of shit with some of the music behind it, and not in a particular prominent way. But the question is Tony Khan stuck in the past, Brian? That was 30 years ago, and it would be the equivalent of if in Smoky Mountain Wrestling in 1994, if I had done a video to I Want to Hold Your Hand. Yeah. Your thoughts?
I mean, I remember you going as far back as Jessica with the Allman Brothers, but it worked.
Well, it worked because it's an
Southern rock, and it was sake. Yeah, I mean, it worked. It worked.
Yeah.
The song could work, but again, the video, it just felt slapdash. It didn't.
Well, I know I'm being facetious that, I know it's somewhat of a timeless classic, but at the same point, this is a national television show in 2024, and he's spending the money with the state of things going on right now. He's got a windfall coming with the TV rights fees, but he's spending the money to license, which Paul never did, bear in mind, license November Rain to do a tribute video to a niche promotion that had small television distribution 30 years ago because it's remembered fondly by fans of that era. And then presenting this goddamn television program full of manure in front of a crowd. Yes, it was Reading, Pennsylvania. And I don't know if Reading's ready for anything. But these people were anesthetized. They were chloroformed. They were handing out propofol fucking lollipops when these people came in the door. So that's what I'm saying. Tony Khan's on the cutting edge of modern wrestling by spending a lot of money to do a bad tribute to a 30-year-old fucking concept remembered by a small niche group of people while putting nobody in a fucking building in Reading and presenting a shit television show.
The other thing is, too, I saw what the crowd was, and according to WrestleTix, tickets distributed were 2,858. You would have thought it was a lot less because, again, a silent crowd is one thing, but when it's a large mass of people that are silent all at once, I mean, that's awkward. It's awkward to go to the it's awkward just to get up from your seat to go to the bathroom at that point.
Well, yeah, you can definitely see people are, wandering around. But again, and again, tickets distributed. How many of them bothered to come and turn them in? We don't know. But it's just, they're just, and it's because this show, you mentioned, it's falling apart. It's not falling apart. It's falling into pieces because you can tell.
Don't say that. He'll license Patsy Cline next week.
I fall to pieces.
Holy shit.
See, you didn't know I could hit that note, did you?
Oh, you hit no note whatsoever there.
I was right up over the top of it.
It's like a cat being yanked by the tail. The fuck was that?
What I'm saying to you is that the people, there are a lot of individuals in AEW, either behind the camera or in front of the camera, that think variously that they are artistes, that they are auteurs. Some of them are movie directors, some of them are producers. Only one of them's a high financier. Some of them are actors. Some of them want to be dramatic. Some of them comedic. I think some of them want to be on reality television. And everybody is getting in between Tony's booking of multiple people in matches that fucking nobody can keep track of. You have a variety of people creating whatever the fuck kind of show business it is that they think they're going to get into next. And here we had Daniel Garcia and Jungle Jacks trying to take after his father, in the Hollywood realm of the Reservoir Dogs tribute that they did. But then you've got Maria May and Mitsu, out there going for the big breast fetish video crowd that they will make millions in. And then you've got Moxley thinks he's a goddamn some kind of beyond Thunderdome motherfucker roaming the plains in a pickup truck with a crew of misfits. And if they really were allowed to carry machine guns, that would complete his thoughts, and maybe have a rocket launcher on the back of the pickup truck. And they're all auditioning for this. And Osprey and his friends want to be video game characters, even down to dressing like them. So it's all apart into pieces depending on what you're seeing at any given time. And MVPs in there trying to navigate the Hurt Syndicate into being wrestling stars in the middle of a bunch of people who want to be on every other kind of television show that's on the air, but a wrestling show, or they're not even on the air. They'd rather be on TikTok or Dick Flip or whatever the fuck they're on these days, these young folks. And they're probably taking the marijuana pills too, ain't they?
Who's they?
All of them. Who are they? The youngsters, the kids on the AEW program. They got to be on some drugs to be doing this, don't they?
Well, I don't want to make any assumptions.
Well, somebody needs to be on some kind of that. I don't know what do they when you have attention deficit disorder. I guess that means you can't pay attention, right? Because you have a deficit of that.
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay, then is there anything that they can give these fucking people to pay attention to what they're doing from one week to the next, just so that it's not gibberish? That's what I'm asking.
Well, let's get to. I'm dying to talk about this show. I'm dying to hear what you have to
anyway.
say about several segments. As I'm watching them, I'm getting to the point now where I'm saying, it goes from I can't wait to hear Jim talk about this to what is Jim going to say about this?
Well, I mean, it's just. The opening match is an all-star 8-man tag match. And by the way, in full disclosure, that was a concept that Delirious had, Hunter Johnston, in Ring of Honor in 2000, what would have been, 2010 or 11, thereabouts, where the singles champions and the tag team champions took on their, as I remember it, if this is correct, their number one challengers or the people that they were having programs with in an 8-man tag for a television match on HD net, unfortunately. That's why nobody remembers it. But to build to something like that and do interviews where, yes, it's a historic match. We're going to have the champions team up against these top challengers in an 8-man tag match, and holy shit. They just decided, okay, here it comes. Lance Archer, Brian Cage, Kyle Felcher, and Take a Shit against Ricochet, Osprey, Hobbs, poor Hobbs, and Mark Davis. How is it an all-star? Mark Davis has not wrestled anywhere for a year, apparently, and still I'm trying to figure out what injury that he got over in 14 months besides having both of his legs replaced. What the fuck did he do to himself? But he's had 2 matches in AEW so far, and he's in an all-star. It's just multiple people out there to satisfy Tony's fetish for writing a bunch of names down and thinking, oh, wow. And instead, he's nullifying everybody. And you've got Ricochet, who was not only, I'm sure, very highly priced, but was a big deal when he came in until, A, I think we've seen it, and nothing's revolutionary, and B, he has the personality of cabbage. And he argues with fans on Twitter. Not even snappy comebacks and then a block, but a back and forth. Like, well, no, you don't know what you're talking about. No, the guy doesn't know what he's talking about. That's why he has 12 followers, you fucking moron.
And every time you can tell Ricochet's like hurt.
Well, yeah, because look at all this shit he's doing. But the point is, he, again, comes in as one of the major single stars in the company, and now he's in an all-star 8-man. With Mark Davis, his partner, who looks like a 50-year-old UPS driver and has had 2 matches in this company, and they expect that people to remember this bond, Brian, the brotherhood that he and Kyle Felcher had in another company, in another country several years ago. But it still burns in both men's groinal area. I don't know. But no, Davis looks like piss on a plate, and nobody gives a shit. And then Brian Cage, just give up. Jesus Christ, in 5 years. He's just there. He doesn't go away long enough to miss him, but he's not back long enough to make him.
Well, he's now a champion. Now he's the, what did they say, Ring of Honor TV champion, I believe.
Oh, and
he grew his hair out, so it's a new look.
Oh, and blow me again. and then Lance Archer. The time is, if he went away long enough that they would forget he's out there with Jake, he's not with Jake. He beats up random production people and throws them down the ramp. He's on and off the television show. He's beaten in minutes, and then sometimes he beats the shit out of the guy that's about to go for the world title. It just give it a fucking rest. And somebody focus on this guy in a year or whatever, when maybe we can forget the bad relationship. And speaking of the phrase lost in the shuffle, which I was about to, Hobbs on one side, take a shit on the other side. They could have paid our boy Take the money that they've paid Okodi and Ishii and fucking, not to mention, what was his name?
Ibushi. I know what you're talking about, Ibushi, yeah.
Ibushi, they signed him to fucking have both of his feet amputated.
Well, they weren't under the word.
They've never seen him again, and Tony's paying him so he can fucking sit there at home with no feet.
He didn't have his feet amputated. We heard that we saw video. He broke both of his ankles.
Yes, well.
I hate to laugh about it.
The way it looked, might as well have taken him off as putting him back on.
He broke both of his ankles. And then we heard recently, maybe 4 months ago or so that he was making a comeback, but I don't know where it is.
Okay, the point is, him, Ishii, Okodi, and 3 other Japanese people that I can't even remember what their fucking names are. They could have taken all that money and paid it to take a shit and put him on TV every week and got him over, and he'd been worth more. But now he's in the all-star 8-man tag. And not to mention Hobbs. Who they had? They had him off for so long. He was legitimately hurt. They couldn't control it. They bring him back. What is the difference right now, Brian, between Powerhouse Hobbs and Bronson Reed?
Well, the difference is the push.
Exactly. And the difference is one's a star and one's in the all-star 8-man tag. Bronson Reed is a monster. Hobbs has more potential, to be quite honest with you, because, and I don't want to, knock on wood, I'm not trying to curse anybody, but as heavy as Reed is and the stuff he's doing, he needs a high-paying job early in his life like right now, because his joints are not going to do well. And I'm still not convinced that he's ever going to be a fireball promo, but fucking Hobbs, I think, could be both for longer, etc. He's got a ton of potential, but he's stuck in this fucking quagmire. And they've made Bronson Reed a star doing simple things impressively because he's a big man and he can. And here's Hobbs can do even more things, and he's not doing anything. And Jesus Christ, I'm sorry. Felcher needs to be a cocky young heel at a territory for about a year, and he might be ready for this spot. But right now, it's goddamn.
Should he have cut his hair?
Not really. No, because at least the fucking the douchebaggy type of blonde haircut that he had before at least could get him some douchebaggy heat. Because that's, but now he's just, as I say, he looks like a fucking a skinhead from Wales or something. And
he's Australian, by the way.
Well, New South Wales.
Aussie! Remember?
New South Wales. There you go. But I mean, so now he had something that made him stand out, and now he's getting, But, and they dress him like a video game. What the fuck is he? Is he? So
they dress him like a video game.
Everybody, he had another one of the fucking things on like they dress in the badass video game when he came out. Did he not?
Yeah, I didn't even notice, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
Well, you didn't have time to notice because the baby faces jumped out of the ring and ran to the entranceway and met the heels in the entranceway and had a big 8-way all over the arena. And just, again, chaos everywhere without anything looking particularly great. And then take a shit and Davis get in the ring and grab a headlock and the referee rings a bell. And again, it's a quagmire of talent with no good direction for all this shit besides his meaningless little inside angles that Tony finds in his mind and what's going on in Ring of Honor. And they did a deal with Hobbs. They hurt Hobbs's leg. Again, they do things they've seen in old angles without any idea of the context or the application or what you're doing to bury it or not. They thought it'd be cool if they hurt Hobbs's leg that he was out with an injury, still wearing a brace, so he has to be taken out of the match so he can limp back in and get a hot tag. And then he didn't win the fucking match. So he limped. They took him out and he limped back and tagged in and made a good comeback on all the heels while selling his leg. He had some fucking fire to him. He looks like $1 million. Goddamn, sell his contract to me. I'll make some goddamn money with him. Anyway, he does all this shit. And he turns around and tags Davis in, and the people were like, ugh, and it went to shit. And there's another lost opportunity. If you were going to get something out of this, he could come in and been a badass, right? But he should have booked a match to begin with. But if you're going to, he could have done that. But then everybody hid and watched Davis do same kind of Japanese shit, would take a shit. And then Davis and Felcher had to fight, if you can call it that. And then everybody came in at random. And Ospreay and Felcher could do some video game bullshit. And then Ospreay, to make it even worse, Ospreay, the probably still most over babyface on the team, he fucks up when the heel moves and knocks out fucking Davis. And then so Kyle can stop Ospreay and can knee lift Davis and just beat him at a flat 1, 2, 3. And so, yes, it's nice that Tate got a win, and it's nice that Davis did a job. It didn't really do anything for Take. It might have for Hobbs. If you wanted the heels to go over, for fuck's sake, I don't know why put Hobbs. Help me.
There's no help. I mean, you say that the wrestlers need direction. They do. The problem is the person at the top needs direction. That's the problem. This show, the formatting, the booking, the results of the match once they happen, it's all a train wreck. And again, it leads to the crowd taking on the personality of Orange Cassidy and just sitting there. Nothing phases them. They don't care. I mean, it was an 8-man match. Did anyone care about this after the fact?
No. And it's 23 minutes into the show before it was over with. And you had to...
Especially considering how they jammed so much all over the place shit at the end of the show. I don't know. I don't know. I guess if this was any place other than the start, though, it would have hemorrhaged viewers. Just because.
But I mean, that's the thing is that there is no complete show. There are segments within the show. One, again, is the Reservoir Dogs homage. Another is a lighthearted comedy segment. Another one is where they all act like they're in a video game. And, so the whole is not cohesive. But meanwhile, back to the hole that they're digging. So right after we get out of that thing, we go to Moxley, and in the back of his plumbing truck, is that what this was? It was at a moving van, just an empty trailer that he and his guys are in, and they're again, are these stolen movie lines? Are these lines he has written for the movie he's making in his head? Does it help when he growls and snarls? And does it matter because he's talking about a joke? He's talking about the company mascot, our little puppy Pockets, Orange Cassidy himself. They're really seriously involving their world champion, as rotten as he may be, with the company mascot because Tony Khan thinks he's cute and dressed up as him for Halloween. And 5 years in, it wasn't funny to begin with, and it's long past stale. And they're doing an audition for some kind of underground film, while at the same time their excuse for it is to talk about the main event of the pay-per-view, where they think this fucking idiot is going to draw with this fucking guy. Am I being too non-specific there? Or, well, either side, pick it. One side is this idiot, and the other side is this fucking guy. What do they expect? And then when Moxley's like, I will destroy you. And meanwhile, this guy's been the phoniest thing on the fucking roster for the past 5 years. So his opponent has done everything possible that he could by word and deed to show that this is all a bunch of fake bullshit that they're doing. And Moxley thinks he's going to work up sympathy from the smartest fan base, probably in terms of whether they know it's a work or not and how worked it is. The smartest fan base in the fucking business to work up sympathy for this fucking fake fucking clown. This is their psychology for a pay-per-view main event. Help me out here. Just throw me a rope.
I'm a real clown.
I mean, what?
I don't know what to tell you. I mean, again, this goes back to the idea that Jon Moxley is handling his own creative. This is something he's very passionate about. Apparently, according to that interview we played a couple weeks ago, in real life and in gimmick, he can't explain it. But Tony is ride or die right now with Jon Moxley. And, I feel like we've said this about a bunch.
Die is an option in that.
It is. And, we've said this about a lot of stuff on this show. But Death Riders is the proper name for his group because they're riding the show to death. Straight to death.
Oh.
And again, I brought it up before. The downward spiral since they aired the Punk Jack Perry video. And then all of a sudden after that, the renewed push for Jack Perry. The Young Bucks big heel thing where they, along with Jack Perry and Okada, turn heel on Tony Khan. MJF's return as a babyface. MJF's return as a heel. Adam Cole's return as a babyface. Adam Cole's return as a heel. Then his return as a babyface again. Just one thing after another. The BCC just being meaningless. So then Moxley just decides that all of a sudden he's some, whatever the fucking thing is. Who even knows at this point?
Neo Zoom Dweeby?
Neo Max Zoom Dweeby.
Yeah.
But every single thing on this show has been building down. Everything is just building down since the spring of last year. And everyone who shows up on that show gets tied into it. The formatting, I'm just going off the whole show here, I know. But the formatting's bad. And specifically, who's going to be the person in the company? Because it ain't Tony. And Tony's going to have to tell the person to do it. Who's going to have the balls to tell Jon Moxley, we can't do this anymore? This is bad TV.
Possibly the network at some point.
This is bad wrestling TV. You're not a creative I know you love your ideas, and you should write them down. But they're never going to be on this show again. I'm paying you all this money. You're going to be my wrestler. Let me... And then that's the problem. And then the person saying that is Tony. Yeah. And he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. But yeah, this was, what was it, segment 2, the Moxley promo.
Well, but here's the thing. We are now unfortunately seeing apparently the beginning of the maelstrom of sinkage catching up with the Hurt Syndicate, in inhaling the Hurt Syndicate. Because I'll explain it for the people that didn't see it, and then I again welcome your thoughts, Brian. But Renee Moxley Goods in the parking lot, and the SUV pulls up, and out step MVP and Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley, and they look like they're dressed in these custom-made suits. And MVP has the big announcement that Bobby Lashley will wrestle tonight. His debut in the fucking, first match in the company. And suddenly in the parking lot again, Swerve from behind knocks Lashley over. And I've been bumped harder in line at Kroger at the checkout counter. But then the announcers had to call attention because you could barely see it on camera. If you went back and freeze framed it, that's the way you would know that Swerve's got this giant logging chain wrapped around his hand, but he didn't hit Lashley in the back of the head, nor with his hand. And then when Lashley goes down and he falls into Shelton, but Swerve backs up and stands there, and Bobby doesn't get up, and Shelton has to go down with Bobby because Swerve is standing, and then he turns around and runs off. Shelton Benjamin could have been up on his feet and run that motherfucker down in 40 feet and fucking took him down. But he's doing this Keystone Cops deal where Bobby Lashley falls into him and he can't get up for 10 fucking seconds. What was was it a 4.40 he did in school? Shelton, I'm telling you. Anyway.
I have no idea.
Swerve leaves. I used to know because of the commentary. Swerve leaves, and MVP, who then finally runs after him, the guy with a fucking hip operation or whatever. And the announcers had to point out that Swerve had a chain on his hand because you never saw it. And I said, and what the fuck? And now here's Bobby Lashley. He made a big debut, 2 weeks ago, and he's making his first wrestling appearance tonight, and this guy's already knocked him on his ass. I'm sorry that they got heat on Swerve so early, but now it's not the time for it to be even Steven. Somebody's telling Tony, I guess some of his playbooker friends on the internet when he was in college or maybe now.
They're not just on the internet anymore.
Well,
they're right next to him.
He got some heat last week, so now Swerve has to get no. I don't care if Bobby Lashley is the bigger star than Swerve Strickland because he's been a champion and on a majorly pushed role for the biggest promotion that has triple ratings, whatever the fuck. He's a bigger star, but not in this atmosphere yet. He needs to come in and he needs to be taken seriously and shown that he is serious and gotten over in this atmosphere, much like everybody else needs to be and should be and seldom are. And if you're upset that he got too much on Swerve, Swerve needs to get some back on him because he got the match coming up. Guess what? You're rushing the fucking match. It's too soon because all the parts aren't ready yet. You put some of the ingredients in your goddamn meatloaf while they were still frozen, and the other ones were raw and they cooked at an improper fucking balance. Oh, Chef Khan. So that's what the problem is. So already they're sabotaging, and we'll get to the other part later on. But now they're being made to look like Fumbly McFumbleton and crew. What the fuck is going on with this show? Your thoughts on that, by the way?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of different problems there. First of all, Bobby Lashley's first match is an unannounced match until minutes before it. So anyone who was just going to be curious to see how he was in an AEW ring, they may not know about it. That's the first thing. The second thing is, it's like Swerve is both the worst booked babyface and the worst booked heel at the same time. And there was no reason, whatever we are, 2-3 weeks into Lashley being there, he shouldn't have been down on his ass for a second. And I don't know, I mean, I don't understand the logic in booking him that way. Even if he's going to beat Swerve at the paper, you didn't have to give Swerve this.
Especially with what's going to happen later on in the show, too, by the way.
Yeah. And again, you want the Hurt Syndicate to stand apart from everything else that is garbage on this show. It comes from the booking. Who's going to be the person to responsibly book them? Because it's a missed opportunity, and it's going to be, because it's Tony Khan, it's going to be a missed opportunity.
Even if you change nothing but they get out of the fucking car and they say Bobby Lashley is wrestling tonight, and somebody said, well, Swerve Strickland's here and he's not too happy about it. Well, then he needs to do something about it if he thinks he's man enough, and leave it there with what's going to happen later on. But no, he's going to come in front of the other two guys that are both ambulatory, knock this guy on his ass, and stand there for a minute and go, well, yeah, and then fucking lope off into the night, unmolested. What the fuck?
Well, as I said before, another astounding episode of Dynamite. It was kind of on the road there, but it was already all over the place. Like, if you really think about it, November Rain, 8-man tag, the Moxley art project, and then the MVP and let's say Swerve. It was Swerve. MVP and Swerve and Lashley and Shelton. Their thing, it's all over the place. Like, there's no feel to the show. It's just, let's go to a completely different thing now. And now something completely different from that. What was the next segment?
Speaking of things that are completely different, explain to me now why Adam Cole's own friends are telling him he's just a big wuss and he can't beat MJF.
I can't explain any of this.
Okay, he comes out for story time with Adam Cole, baby, and they'll still do Boom, and they'll still do Baby, but then he basically, I'm bummed that I'm not getting MJF at Full Gear, but at least Roddy succeeded, and he's going to whip MJF's ass, and then the music plays, and here comes Kyle O'Reilly, who... But he makes note that 14 years ago, here in Reading, Pennsylvania, we had our second match together. And if people, they didn't pop for their own town. Because it wasn't exactly Hogan and Andre returning to the Silverdome on a 30th anniversary, right, or whatever. But Kyle tells Adam Cole, you got to drop your obsession with MJF. You got to stop having your friends fight your battles for you. It's not healthy, and Roddy can get hurt. I mean, I don't know what he's pleading with. He actually said MJF is 3 steps ahead of everybody. And I don't want to see my friends get hurt. MJF is more of an evil bastard than you'll ever be, and that's a good thing. You're too good of a guy. And so, I swear to God, he's telling him, you're too good of a guy. You don't have it in you to fuck this guy. He's going to beat the shit out of you. And you're getting all of us hurt too. What kind of psychology is this?
You know, when I was a kid, I used to hear the story. I wish I could remember the principal's name, but the principal at Lido Elementary School, was this woman who was getting up there in years and maybe not in step with the rest of the school board or whatever, but they couldn't get her to retire. They had to ask my grandmother, knowing she was close with the woman, to take her out to lunch and have a talk with her and see if she could understand. And she retired under very pleasurable terms after that. I kind of felt like that's what this was. It was like, you're a great guy. You like video games. Maybe you could do something with video games.
Oh, damn it.
You don't have to go back to this Max thing. No, nobody wants any more of that. He's right. I mean, everything he was saying was right. To his fucking yellow friend.
To his yellow friend. Again, looks like a fucking Simpsons character now. With the... But so basically that's what he said. MJF is more of an evil bastard than you'll ever be, and that's a good thing. And then he just walked off, O'Reilly did, and left Adam Cole standing there confused, as were the people, because it was just kind of like, it's over. There's no, what are we going to be told or understand here? So that was that. Maybe it would have been better if Adam Cole had been a fucking manager, because the promos he could have been cutting all this time, and he wouldn't have broke all of his various bones that he's broken in his company.
As a complete chicken shit, especially with that hair. Just the idea of that hair flying around with a punch or a bump or whatever.
Yes.
He would have been great.
He could have been Bobby Heenan. He could have been the best working manager. Oh, now his friends are telling him, hey, give it up, shit. Just stick with the fucking mid-card guys, because this fucking guy. We go now to the challenger for the World Heavyweight title. He, as the Dream Machine, Troy Graham, would have said, he needs to eat a lot more Van Camp's pork and beans to be a heavyweight. Pockets is in the back, and you've heard of people, Brian, who have this condition, who sleepwalk. You've heard of sleepwalking, right?
I have, yeah.
You've also heard of sleep talking.
Yeah.
Because that's what he does. He talks like a guy talking in his sleep. And here's this fucking hatchet-headed guy. His whole promo is, I'm going to beat old Wheeler tonight, and I'm going to beat Moxley, and I'm going to beat you alone. And there comes Mark Briscoe and Rocky Romero and Ishii. And they're saying, we're going to have your back. And he said, no, I don't want you to help me. He actually tells Moxley, tonight, do what you need to do, 5-on-1.
Yeah.
Because
I just don't care. I don't care about anything. Just whatever. Yeah.
Saturday at Full Gear, you're going to need all the help you can get. But here's the psychology. It's not that his friends are saying, we're going to help you beat up the heel champion and win his belt. They should be saying, this is what it's been theoretically the idea from the start of time, is that the other babyfaces, friends of his, would keep his heel henchmen from interfering so that it's even between Pockets and Moxley. And then if Pockets can beat him fair and square, well, there you go. But they're supposed to keep a level playing field. But no, he says, no, don't help me. What was it they said a week or two ago? I don't want these guys to get hurt. I'm obviously the only one tough enough here to fight all 5 of these fucking guys.
Yeah, I'm a moron. I'll do it.
Yeah, that's the point. That's what people are thinking, because then he goes out there and he gets murderized. The 5 fucking guys. Just battered and beaten, like pummeled like a government mule. And his friends don't come out until afterwards. We'll get there. But they're trying to sell this clown like he's Bruiser Brody. And he's asking for these 5 fucking heels that don't sell anything anyway to just beat him up 5-on-1. Because he don't want his pussy friends to get hurt. Is this what this story is?
I'm Snoozer Brody. No, this whole thing is terrible. And again,
Snoozer Brody may replace Pockets. I got to write that down.
Well, thank you very much. But again, this is the top feud in the company. Jon Moxley, for reasons no one can understand, has announced that he hates AEW. I know the feeling. He hates AEW.
Yeah.
And he's going to maul and murder. He tried to murder Bryan Danielson at least twice. It's crazy to say that about a wrestling thing. He tried to murder him at least twice. And Orange Cassidy's aware of that, and he doesn't care. But he doesn't do it in like a baby face, like the way Tracy Smothers would. I mean,
yeah.
I don't care, I don't need anybody. Like fire. Instead, it's like, oh, come on. Even now, the fucking gimmick, the dead gimmick. Sucks. This sucks so much. It's sucking the life out of that show. You look at those fans, those crowds. Like I said, it's either everything sucks and the fans are reacting that way, or Orange Cassidy is so influential over their fan base that they've taken on his apathetic personality for the entire card.
Well, we're going to check in later on with the plumber and this reject from the oil pit at Valvoline. But first, we have to endure another match. Chris Statlander. She's going to be fighting the giant monetary flop known as Mercedes Moan at Full Gear. So what do? They put her in the ring with another babyface and have her go 10 competitive minutes.
Oh, come on. The post-match made it all worth it.
All right, well then, she beat Hikaru Shida by the hair of her chinny chin chin. I guess we shouldn't say that about the women.
By the way, Hikaru Shida's terrible. I know because she was there in the early days and she was like...
I wasn't defending her.
Friends with Kenny. Like, people would have been like, oh, she's really good. She's terrible in the ring. She's terrible. But anyway, go ahead.
But also, again, Statlander took 10 minutes to win, and then they shook hands. So that's like kissing your sister. Although if she had kissed Shida, it might be more interesting. But then again, that would be infringing on Maria May and Mitsu Arakawa's gimmick.
It's like kissing your sister if she was dressed like a hostess at the Pancake House.
I don't know what to think. But anyway.
She should come to the ring with a menu.
That was Arn Anderson's gimmick, remember?
No.
The Waffle House menu as coach of Cody. But nevertheless, so the match is over. They shake hands. And then here comes Mercedes and Camille. And Mercedes does the stripper shimmy. And there is no reaction whatsoever to this woman or now these people. Camille is out there with her arm in a sling. She's dressed like a normal person. She has a look on her face like she has realized that abandon all hope ye who enter into Tony Khan's river Styx of booking.
They've somehow booked her into being the most sympathetic heel since George the Animal Steel.
Well, no, actually, I'm starting not to feel sorry for her because even with one arm, she could kick the shit out of this skinny little bitch that she is pushing her around.
Oh, my God. Every week. What did I say? Every week, she hurts her arm and yells, ow.
Yes. Ow. Ow. So, Mercedes does a promo on Statlander and the fans, and by the way, TBS is not like USA Network. They're not even making an attempt to believe it. The fans, and not in the way of like you're a really hot heel, but in the way of, oh, please stop doing what you're doing, are chanting, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. And then Mercedes, when she's done with the promo on Statlander, she tells Camille, she pissed me off, go beat her up. She got her arm in a fucking sling, right? And go beat her up. And Camille's like, what, have we established why? What employment agreement did Mercedes make with Camille that indicates that if Mercedes says, step in front of that fucking Volkswagen, and Camille's got to goddamn get fucking beetled? What? So she's starting into the ring reluctantly now. And so now we can officially say now Camille is dead. Ask for a release before this kills your after AEW career. I don't know how much they're paying you, but good God. She gets in the ring like a whipped puppy. She looks at both of the baby faces and by the way, there's two baby faces. Sheeta's still in there. Sheeta, just because Sheeta and Statlander kicked the shit out of each other for 10 minutes doesn't mean that there's any hard feelings. So now this heel with one arm gets in a ring with two able-bodied baby faces. I need oxygen. and she swings with her good arm at Statlander, and Statlander blocks it and nails her, and Sheeta roundhouse kicks her in the head. And then Statlander thinks it's going to be a good idea to throw her out of the ring. She's only got one arm, and it's the right when she can't catch the rope right. She has to catch the rope with her right hand and flip over, and she lands on the bad arm, and then she sells it. And then as she goes down on the floor, Sheeta, the babyface, gets on the floor and starts kicking the injured heel while she's down. And when she throws the kick at her, she falls down doing it accidentally. And then while Statlander is looking at her other babyface friend kicking the shit out of this poor injured girl, Mercedes tries to jump on Statlander's back and like she was going to do the backstabber thing, but Statlander's so powerful she was going to stand up and pull her over and turn it into a tombstone. But Mercedes had 3 tries to jump up on her fucking back, catching her by surprise each time. And then she turned. She went, oh, I can't believe this girl's jumping on my. Oh, she's off. Oh, I can't believe she's jumping on my. Oh, she's off. Oh, I can't believe she's jumping. And then she turned it into the tombstone pile driver and left Mercedes laying there. And there's Camille, had the shit kicked out of her on the floor. The heat. My God, it was killing heat, scalding heat, boiling heat. But and again, Camille went from being at a striking, large, attractive, intriguing bodyguard type of possibility to give some kind of muscle and personality to this total, complete loss, Mercedes, and she's just any flunky in 2 months.
It's puzzling. But again, this is Mercedes Moné writing her own stuff with her own people.
I forgot about Alexandra Pepperday.
And then working with the booking genius of Tony Khan on everything to make sure it all works together just right. No, I really want to see if Statlander can get her hands on these 2 at the pay-per-view.
Well, I'm afraid if she does, she'll go to prison this time.
Is Camille being hazed? Did she do something to someone? I'm serious. Like, the booking of Camille is puzzling. It doesn't make any sense.
You know what it is like the old days when there was a sudden change in the booker in a territory and somebody that was like in the middle of a 8-week mega push all of a sudden is doing a tag team match with a job guy as a partner on TV the next week.
I don't know.
So remember when last we left the Hurt Syndicate, they had been made to look like the Three Stooges in the parking lot by one guy. So now we come and they're in the back. MVP and Shelton are in the back with a guy with the camera or whatever. And there's come here, follow me or whatever the flimsy premise is. And they see a guy with his back turned wearing Swerve's fur coat, and they grab the guy and jack him up against the wall, and it's some random civilian in Reading, Pennsylvania that has dreadlocks and is wearing a full-length fur coat in the back of the arena where there's no fans allowed.
And wearing Swerve's coat is really what it is.
And wearing Swerve's coat. Or an identical coat. It wasn't made clear. Is that the only coat of its kind in the world? Is that the coat of many colors?
Did they find an extra in Reading, Pennsylvania who just happened to have the same coat?
Well, that's what I'm thinking, is that this guy just happened to be wearing the coat. Because why would Swerve give the guy the coat?
Well, is Tony paying now for his top guys to have body doubles?
You know, I saw that movie with Kathleen Turner. It was excellent. But the point is, it led nowhere, because later on we're going to find out that fucking Ned Swervington is underneath the ring. He's not wearing his coat, but why did he want to get this poor guy beat up? Just because they found a guy wearing Swerve's coat doesn't mean that now we're convinced that Swerve is nowhere around here and won't be attacking us any goddamn minute. We just know we found his fucking coat. Is he trying to throw us off the scent? They should be more goddamn nervous. What the fuck is going on here?
Oh shit, is that Swerve? Yo, Swerve, I'm a big fan. Oh yeah, thanks. Yo, I really felt bad for you when they fucking burned your house down. Oh, thanks. Hey, that's a great coat. Here, you want it? Wear it.
Yeah.
See you later.
Yeah, here you go. Will you put this coat on and just turn your back to the corner there? It'll be fine.
Yeah, what was the guy doing? What was he doing?
Yeah, he was just looking at the wall. He was inspecting the fucking wall. So the Hurts are being Tony Khan'd here now, finally. And at 8:56...
Will Washington. But anyway.
Well, Will Wheaton was a successful fucking television personality.
Well, movies too. Don't forget Stand By Me.
Well, there you go. I will never let you down. I'll always lean on you when you're not strong.
Did you see the movie Stand By Me?
Many, many years ago on television of some description.
Television of some description?
Yes, it could have been local. It could have been cable. It could have been before cable. I don't know. It's
some description. I didn't know if the man, it could be a circle, it could be a square, it could be a rectangle, it could be...
Well, no, it was tube-like.
A rhombus.
A what?
Rhombus.
What is a rhombus?
I'm not sure.
Well, then why are you fucking...
I know it's out there. I know it's one of them. I know it's one of them.
You're not allowed to just say words that you know are words, but you don't know what they fucking are.
I sure am when it comes to shapes.
Do you know it's a shape?
I'm looking it up right now. Rhombus shape. Yes, it is.
Well, they're shaped like Romulans.
The rhombus is 20... Oh, no, excuse me. That's not 20. It's 2D. The rhombus,
oh, good Lord,
is a quadrilateral whose four sides all have the same length.
Wait a minute. You got four sides all the same length? That's a fucking square.
No, it's a rhombus, and it's not a square.
How can four sides all the same length not be anything other than a square? You see, you're
hey,
yanking my fucking dick here.
I'm not Mr. Wizard. It's not me.
Are you reading Mr. Wizard's book?
I am not. Does he have a book?
How do you spell that rhombus?
I thought you just how do you spell wizard? RHOMBUS.
Okay, hold on. You could have done that even quicker. I could have kept up with you.
Like a Riho omnibus. Rhombus.
Oh, good Lord. Rhombus. An equilateral stop it. An equilateral parallelogram. Wait a minute. Hold on. Parallelogram. P-A-R. P-A, paraffin?
No, that's a wax.
Paraplegia.
No,
paramedic.
No.
A parallelogram, a four-sided plane figure with opposite sides parallel. A four-sided plane figure with opposite sides parallel. Well, opposite sides would always be parallel on a thing with four sides, wouldn't it? Wait a minute. Plane figure with opposite parallel. Being an equal distance apart everywhere and never intersecting. Well, both sides of a square are that.
Well, let me try to help you a little bit, Jim. I will look up what is the difference between a square and a rhombus.
Yeah. See, my dictionary doesn't have the answer to questions like that.
The main difference between a square and a rhombus is that all the angles of a square are equal to 90 degrees, and hence are equal in measure, but in the case of a rhombus, only the opposite angles are equal. Does that help you out? You have another 5 seconds, or I'm gonna have to hit the buzzer.
Well, what the opposite? The opposite of what?
The opposite angles. Maybe that's what AEW is doing. Opposite angles. Angles that have the opposite effect of what angles are supposed to do. The opposite angles. That's how you bring it back.
I'm going to need you to mail me a diagram on paper of a rhombus. And then I'll get back to you on
Hold on, you just Googled it. No images came up?
I didn't Google it. I've opened the American Heritage Dictionary, 3rd edition, looked up rhombus, which led me to the parallelogram. But there's no fucking schematic there. What are you laughing at? I'm trying to learn.
All right, well, let's get back to the opposite angles on AEW Dynamite. You know, Jim.
Yes.
It's funny to think
funny
about.
That way.
There's so many funny things happening. Things are happening all over. all over in English. Listen. No, you know what the problem is? I'm all off today because my back's all messed up.
Sound like you're low on protein to me.
I didn't have my usual Orgain today because my whole schedule is all screwed up. And now I'm here with you. And as soon as we're done, I'm going to have my Orgain. And everyone else can have theirs too.
And you can regain your Orgain. And with your Orgain, you can be orgasmic. Because, and a matter of fact, as soon as you grab that delicious protein shake, the chocolate fudge, the 30 grams of protein in this delicious chocolate milkshake apparatus they got, and you throw that back, just throw your head back and just guzzle down your goozle pipe, Brian, the chocolatey, milky goodness there within, your back is going to feel better instantly. This is a rejuvenator. Ladies and gentlemen, it rejuvenates.
Well, for the record, I don't believe any of that is actually one of the things that they claim, so let's be careful not to make our own claims in the name of the fine people at Orgain.
It rejuvenates the lead in your pencil, I'll tell you that. You can take a swig of this stuff, and boy, howdy, it's like you're down in New Orleans on Bourbon Street. The 30-gram protein shakes are an excellent source of complete protein with all 9 essential amino acids. And you know about those aminos, if you don't dump some acid on them every now and then, they can take over the whole flower bed. What? So it's going to give you energy to keep you going, provide muscle support and recovery, help you maintain a healthy lifestyle, and manage hunger. And that's what we all want to do, manage hunger. As a matter, you see somebody hungry on the street, slap one of these bad boys in their hand, and they will swig it down, and maybe they can mix it with some Ripple.
Well, first of all, no. Don't slap anyone with anything. Hand over very nicely the suggestion of a healthy thing they can ingest instantly.
Well, it tastes good, too.
And it's delicious, and of course...
Yes. If you want protein for your healthy body, your body is a temple, Brian, and that's why right. If you find some bum, some drunk,
lay off the Ripple. I guess that was my other point.
Drinking a bottle of Ripple, slap one of these in their hand and get them to trade or at least add to, because then you could have some Orgipple. Or you know what you get when you mix champagne and Ripple, Champipple. Or eggnog and Ripple is egg nipple.
Okay, what?
Well, you could have some Orgipple here.
No, just have Orgain.
These drunk bums laying in a sewer somewhere would have more protein. They'd have more protein in their systems, and they would feel better, and they could shake off the bonds of alcoholism.
So you're going into the sewer to find these people?
Well, someday you got to go where the people are. And, some people, they're born in a sewer, they live in a sewer, they die in a sewer, they commit suicide.
Oh, come on now.
So,
let's get back to the deliciousness.
I'm telling you, drink these because they taste great and they have the protein that makes you feel good. Only 1 gram of sugar per serving. It's made with no artificial flavors or sweeteners. You've scoffed at my idea of pouring it over ice cream, but I'll tell you what, it's delicious. But you can also, besides taking care of yourself, do something nice for other people and give them an Orgain protein shake, especially if they're down on their luck, so that they too can rise back to the cream of society. Because you can get these things, they're so inexpensive, but we can save you money. We can save you 20% off these things, and that way you can give 2 out of 10 of them away to somebody and still break even, and you'll be charitable. I think you can write this off your taxes.
Let's not look at it that way. That's the wrong way to look at it. Let's look at it a way to spend some money on something that will be good for you, something that you'll feel good drinking. It's delicious right after you work out, or maybe before you work out, or maybe in the morning, maybe in the evening. It's good all the time, 24 hours a day. That's guaranteed. It's the same deliciousness any hour of the day. That's the guarantee.
Orgain in the morning, Orgain in the evening, Orgain at supper time. And take some down to the jail and give them to the criminals. And that way it'll spring them out of jail. They'll instantly
No, whoa, that's wrong on First of all, I don't know how you're supposed to sneak these in. Let's not even discuss how it would happen.
Well, it'll straighten these people up. It'll heal their brains. They're drinking all this meth that they're making under their kitchen sink.
That's not how it all works. They don't drink meth. This is not how any of this works.
That's why that they're in the shape they're in jail now. They're drinking the meth. So take them some Orgain. And you get them all out of jail. They'll be working in your own homes and businesses soon.
Okay, why don't we just focus on how Orgain is good for the listeners as opposed to other people who someone else can worry about right now.
Remember, we got that email. Somebody was listening to us in jail.
No, we have a lot of listeners there, but the point is we're not.
Well, what?
That's not the sales pitch.
They don't deserve protein shakes in jail. Is that what you're saying? You know, Stephen P. New sued people in West Virginia like you that want to mistreat the inmates.
I don't want to mistreat the inmate. That wasn't what I'm saying.
Folks, if you're an inmate in federal or state or local penitentiaries and you'd like to save 20% on the delicious Orgain 30-gram protein shakes,
a normal citizen, wherever you may be,
you can do that too.
This is for you, yes.
We're trying to help solve the crime problem. They're available at Orgain.com. That's Orgain. Orgain.com. If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. If you want to get in on it today, Orgain.com/JCE. Use the code JCE, 20% off your order. No matter how much you order, you're getting 20% off. So, if you order enough, you could supply all of Rikers Island. Once again, Orgain.com/JCE, code JCE, 20% off so they know I sent you, because after all, they know it's me and Johnny Cash that are the champions of prisoners' rights. Every convict should have an Orgain sitting in front of him in the morning. You'll have fewer prison riots.
Well, again, let's focus on everyone else and the ex-cons right now. Let's talk about Orgain one more time, Jim. It's delicious. I love it. I didn't have it today. I will after we're done.
Well, don't tell your parole officer that you didn't have your Orgain today.
Oh, stop it. I don't have to declare
you're off parole now? You're not on parole anymore?
Jim, what's that promo code one more time?
JCE.
All right. Let's get back to Dynamite.
Oh, we were talking about the Hertz being dynamited. The Hurt Syndicate is being blown up by explosive booking. So, and by the way, it was after they grabbed the guy with the coat.
Oh.
What?
I have an update.
Uh-oh.
All squares are rhombuses, as all sides of a square are of equal lengths. All squares are also rectangles, as each internal angle is 90 degrees. All squares are not parallelograms. So
I need to see this on paper. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, the Hertz, back to them. It was 4 minutes to 9, the magic hour, when they send out the stars, and it's Lashley and MVP and Shelton Benjamin. And Lashley's going to have his debut match on television. And first of all, they called it this is a 2-on-1 match instead of a handicap match. Is that like midget wrestling? Are you not allowed to say handicap match? Has that ever, are golfers allowed to play golf with a handicap anymore?
Has a handicap person ever complained about a handicap match being called a handicap match?
Not that I've ever heard of, but they had a handicap person have a goddamn match on this show before, remember? The legless man?
I guess you're right.
But they can't say, they can have a legless wrestler, but they can't say handicap match.
They don't say legless anymore either. He's devoid of lower extremities.
He's tubularly challenged. Anyway, it was Bobby Lashley versus some guy named Joe P. and Cheeseburger. And I'm not trying to say that Cheeseburger is not a nice young fellow. Are you familiar with Cheeseburger's course in the wrestling industry and how he got here to this point today, Brian?
I know the name. I feel like I possibly could have seen him on one of the Ring of Honor shows I had gone to.
Yes, you did.
Not really my. He was a very skinny. I remember him being skinny. I mean, it looked like he filled out a little bit. He looked bigger now than he did.
Well,
then,
he's painfully thin now, and he's gained a lot of weight.
Yeah.
But no, and I'm not knocking him as a person. But here's Cheeseburger is a young man that was training in 2000, maybe 7, 8, whatever, out of very early with Hunter Johnston, Delirious. Delirious was operating the Ring of Honor training school and program and did through the Sinclair era as well, among 18 other jobs he did in that company. And he liked Cheeseburger. I think he got his name because he was over there that skinny and eating fucking Big Macs or whatever. But the kid, he can do all the moves. It's just physically, it's a gimmick in itself. And if if you're just going to bring him in as a job guy instead of actually working a gimmick, here this guy is like as big around as a fucking hiccup, but whatever, then it just looks stupid and funny. And he's from Reading, apparently, because about 75 hometown friends were chanting cheeseburger, cheeseburger. But this is Bobby Lashley's debut. He should have been in there against two guys that weren't that big, but physically 200 pounds, 210 pounds, athletic, look serious. Instead, we got Joe. The guy was trying to make the most of his time on camera by trying to sell and do everything that he was supposed to do right, but he's also green as a pepper tree. And then Cheeseburger can do all this shit, but he's visually humorous at a point in time where you don't want people to be laughing. So they made Lashley's debut match funny. And again, Hunter thought a lot of him and used him. He was on the ring crew while I was there, but he used him quite extensively. But there's nothing better. That was not the place for him. The casting department let Bobby Lashley down here with picking the right opponent visually for what they were doing. But then he mauled both of them and hurt-locked old Joe as he was supposed to, and then Swerve's music plays. And again, this is where we go from, killers to Keystone Cops. It always has to be funny somehow. Nana comes out the entranceway, and Shelton sees Nana and runs over there and chases him back through the tunnel. One would think maybe MVP, being the manager, would have gone after, leave the fucking fighter out for the still unidentified, unaccounted for Swerve Strickland. But Shelton chases Nana, who's obviously a threat in himself, all the way out of the building. And then MVP is at ringside with his cane, but he's looking around in the stands like, where's he going to come from? Where he came from was conveniently right from under the ring, right where MVP was standing with his back turned. And he goes in the ring also where Lashley's back is turned. And he hits him with a chain again. As New Jack would say, chained to the bows of a slave ship. He was chained to the back of the head again. And then he leveled MVP. MVP jumps up and he levels him. So already the manager has been punched and is down. We don't need to wait to see that anymore. And then here comes Shelton back and he nails him and he knocks him down. And then he kicks Lashley in the head and does the double stomp on him. And leaves him laying there. He stands over him first, and then he leaves before Shelton and MVP can get back in the ring and do anything about it. As I told Vince McMahon one time when he was suggesting the quick fashion to beat Antonio Pena's champion, why don't we just piss in his mouth while he's down there? What they leveled Lashley?
I didn't know that was an option.
Well,
keep that in mind.
I'm the one that put it in his mind. What the fuck? Lashley's on his fucking face already. What the fuck is going on here? Are they out of their mind? Well, it's a rhetorical question. Are they out of their minds? Could you believe you were seeing in front of the pay-per-view? We don't even have to pay to see Swerve emasculate all three of these guys and make them look like goddamn Mo, Larry, and Curly. We can see it on free television. Because the fucking guy running this show is a goddamn lunatic.
To the people that argue that if Swerve's going to do the job to Bobby Lashley at the pay-per-view, he has to have something beforehand to, I don't know what, even things out or just make him. Well, what would you say to that? Is it
what even things out? I said, goddamn, Lashley needs to come back and do some more shit to him to get even with this. That's the thing. Maybe the babyface comes in and wrecks something of the heels or fucking takes the piss out of him in some embarrassing way. But again, the point is that's assuming. You said if Lashley's going to win, then doesn't Swerve have to get something? That's assuming that both guys have been in the territory and this confrontation has been planned and built for some time where both guys are at an equal level of over in this environment on this program. And that is not Lashley. It's his first fucking time wrestling on a goddamn whole show. He just got here. As I said earlier, even if he's a bigger star nationwide, Nathan Wide, baby, you have to be established in this atmosphere. You can't just hop in from fucking True Blood and and announce that now you're a character on fucking American Horror Story. You get there, well, why are you here? And what, you're going to do something for me to get me interested in you? That whole type of thing. So they're rushing this to begin with. So there is no proper answer that fits all your parameters, Brian, to try to cut this off before it goes any longer. Nothing correct fits all the parameters, but you would not, I would think, as one of the top 5 or 10 choices, have your baby face that's just started interacting with these people less than a month ago lay out the goddamn heel opponent and make buffoons of his manager and henchman a week before not even a week before the pay-per-view, where you're trying to sell a match between them where Swerve is supposed to try to get even for what Lashley did to him. I think Lashley needs to come back and piss in his post-toasties some more just to make it even. Now, my sympathies lie with Lashley.
They need to abandon all of this and just do another restart next week, and have the Death Riders all come out, and then have the Hurt Syndicate come out and just wipe them all out on the same show. Put Lashley over for the belt. Fuck it. And that's it.
I mean, this group could have believably taken over this company if they wanted to. But what they should have done, again, is just let Shelton and Lashley come out and look like $1 million and let MVP talk about them like they're major superstars and have them on a weekly basis, Shelton one week, Bobby the next, beat people that are names on the card that have been there forever that ain't doing you any good, but they've got some cachet built up with the basic fan base, and beat them like redheaded stepchildren. And do that for 2 or 3 months, and every time you play their music and they come out, people will be roaring. Just let them do their shit. Do you want to skip over the bad promo between Maria and Mitsu Arakawa and they were shaking their tits again?
Well, Mina Shirakawa, and once again, I guess this is like an inside joke now in the company. The segment ended with specifically Mariah May doing the tit shaking, this time right to the camera, staring at the camera, aggressively shaking her breast. It doesn't look the same when it's not natural. It looks a little weird.
What is this? Is this another one of these Japanese things that doesn't translate over here, but they keep trying to make it? Do they do that in the girls' indie outlaw promotions in Japan? Is that that's some sign of something, like the rapid fire chops in the corner, the rapid fire tit shaking? Or is this just, does Tony have a succulent nipple fetish?
A boob fetish. Yeah, is Tony a boob man?
Oh, well, now that opens up all kinds of double meaning.
Yeah.
I would call him a boob in some instances, but that's just me. But nevertheless,
Would you call him a man?
well, that may be more up to debate than the boob. Could he just be boob boy?
All right. Well, we'll see more of Mina and Mariah and the Flying Tits at the pay-per-view for this. I can't even say it. For the champagne celebration.
Yes, and just which end of the bottle you think is going in first? That's what
It's Newark.
that's what I'm wondering. All right, then it was time for Darby Allin versus Claudio Castagnoli.
Oh.
And Darby Allin, by the way, if they were going to have an undersized babyface challenging Moxley for the title, then, well, here he is, but I guess Moxley's got to beat Pockets first so that Darby that can then come to good Darby. It seems like Darby is going to have to come to Pockets' rescue, even though Pockets has 20 pounds on him, 160 to 140.
After this match, who knows what the fuck they're thinking. I don't know what they were thinking here.
This was an interesting choice, wasn't it? Because, folks, you would think Darby Allin versus Claudio. We've seen Claudio's track record over the last few years since he's been there, that he would generally always be defeated by a babyface of Darby Allin's standing in the community. And this was the same match as always. That Claudio's got a foot on him and 100 pounds on him. So Claudio does everything to him that he could possibly do for around 10 minutes. And Darby lives through all of it. And then finally, normally it would be that Darby does something resilient and smart and gets the win. But in this case, Claudio just took him out on the floor and got on the announce desk and pressed Darby up over his head and pitched him from standing on the announce desk, and Claudio's 6'6" or whatever. So pitched him like 10 feet in the air across the way to another table that he landed on that didn't break, because he landed right on top of the legs rather than in the middle of it, and he's bounced and it bounced again, fell on his head, and then the tablecloth came off the table that didn't break, and as he fell, he wrapped himself up in it. So it looked like a goddamn, some kind of self-service machine at Taco Bell wrapping the fucking burritos or whatever. And, okay, one would think that would pretty much incapacitate young Mr. Allen. So Claudio gets back in the ring, and the referee starts counting. And at the count of 9, Darby suddenly, instantly gets the energy to dive into the ring and then lay there again so that Claudio can wind up and clothesline him and beat him 1, 2, 3. So they didn't even do a count out that you would have bought to save the guy. But this is, if they have a baby face that's going to fight Moxley next, it's probably going to be Darby. Because, and Darby or Osprey, because nobody gives a shit about any of their other baby faces. So they have one of Moxley's henchmen beat Darby, and not just beat him with an out, but beat him flat as a fucking pancake. Is now Moxley just decide, well, nobody can beat anybody in my little band of merry pranksters?
I can't explain the booking here. You know, I'm not a big Claudio fan. I thought he was all right back in the day. I think he's, I don't know, the European sleeping pill.
He's a wonderful technician, but he's been used much better in other genres.
And Darby, for whatever it's worth, Darby's the one guy who still does move things in a positive way. You know, up until at least recently, Darby's segments would be higher rated than other segments. Remember that match, Darby and Moxley, actually on Dynamite, I think.
Yeah.
Was one of the last times that quarter 8 went up into the overrun because of that match. And we've come to find out it was more Darby than Moxley. And I don't think he's ever taken a loss like this in AEW, to be honest with you. And I don't see the purpose of giving that to Claudio. I mean, even if they're not going to build him up for Moxley, why would you give that to, Claudio's not going to be like, yeah, I don't know.
Darby was in the main event as Sting's partner of the biggest show they've done all year in this country and the biggest pay-per-view they've done all year. And now he's getting beaten 10 minutes on TV by Claudio, who never really wins anything.
They found like every way they could to deflate the fans there.
Yeah.
Like, all throughout the night. Like every single thing that happened one by one was, how do we make these fans either feel awkward watching the screen or just hate what they're seeing in the ring?
Well, let's piss them off even further. Let's remind them that MJF is not going to be there. You want to? Let's put him up on a screen somewhere obviously not there so that people know, well, here's another goddamn star that we're just watching on television even though we paid for tickets. They have another mini movie. Brian where
was he? Was he in the swamp? Where was he?
Well, it looked, he drove up a fancy sports car next to like an old dilapidated, like old garage, like car, garage mechanic place or something, with an old car sitting out in front of it and a bum on the bumper, and he flipped the quarter out in the fucking yard and he said, "Go chase it." And the bum runs off. Where is he frequenting? And the camera was already there when he pulled in. So there's potentially a murderer. Who knows who this wino could be? He could be wanted for goddamn international espionage. And there's a man with a fucking $10,000 camera just sitting right in front of him waiting for MJF to drive up in the sports car. So what was the reason why this was set in this place? Did it have anything to do with anything that was being said or done?
No, but it's interesting the inherent class warfare they present. MJF, the young guy making the big money now, has the fancy car. He's the bad guy. Moxley and Jack Perry, both millionaires, are driving like the fucking station car, the car you leave at the train station. But they're millionaires, so I don't know. It's an interesting thing going on. I still think Tony should just do wacky races. I think if Dynamite became a little bit of wrestling and then like 40 minutes of wacky races and then like 20 minutes of tits. And it seemed like they may be on the way there. So there's promise. There's a lot. You think it's big WWE buying PBR. Wait until Tony starts just doing bull riding on the shows.
That could be its own segment. Because they've already got a segment of bull. They get to have somebody ride it. But so MJF's promo is about Roderick Strong, and he tells everybody, well, because you're trailer trash, Roddy, because you had a horrible childhood, and your mother shot your father. When did this come out? When have they ever said this on this program? When have they been talking about, how have we missed hearing? I worked with him in Ring of Honor and had him fill out goddamn questionnaires for the announcers. I don't remember the story that his mother shot his father. And now his mother and father were both addicts, and he was abused, troubled child growing up. The most annoying fucking heel on the show for the last 2 years, Adam. And fucking tormenting Adam Cole when he was injured, making him do all, and being suddenly we find out that he was warped by his childhood and he's trying to overcome it. And had this ever been said before?
I don't remember ever hearing about his mom shooting his dad. The addict thing, when MJF said it, or when it was said in this whole thing, I remember thinking, okay, maybe I heard that. And then when MJF just casually said, your mom shot your dad, and moved on, I was like, wait a minute, what? When was that? Was that while he was trying to recruit the Beast Mortos? When did that happen on the show?
Well,
Frank?
and that's the thing. When would they have had to, when Adam Cole or when Roderick Strong and Matt Taven and Mike Bennett have been trying to be this heel fucking group as part of Disciples of the Devil, Adam Cole, and all the stuff that they've gone through? When would it have been a convenient time to mention that Roderick Strong's parents were substance abusers or addicts of whatever kind, and that they shot each other? I don't remember that being brought up on his television program.
Well, I don't know anything about shooting each other. Apparently,
Well,
she shot him.
whichever. Well, goddamn, you shoot me, motherfucker. Then by gum.
It wasn't who shot John. It was her. She shot John.
Tit for tat. I mean, somebody should be firing back.
Tit for tat was the other segment.
Oh, that's true. That's Maria. Well, but nevertheless, MJF as usual, it's great delivery, but what is this fucking material? And then he closed up. He said, Roddy, you're going to wish that your mother had shot you instead of your father. What the... And again, Roddy was just the most annoying heel fuck until, 3 weeks? Well, and because then... they're doing something else in the middle, but I'll come back to it. But Tony Schiavone was with Roddy and Taven and Bennett. And I didn't know, what are Taven and Bennett doing? Besides palling around with Roddy, can't they be a tag team? Since we got to endure all these other tag teams, can we see them wrestle?
That would kill the ratings right now. Based on the way they've been used in the last 2 years, no one wants to see them on this show.
Well, nobody wants to see any of these people, but at least it might be easier for us. But Roddy does the promo, and why, if he's a sympathetic babyface now with a troubled childhood, is he still doing Max? What? And why is he wearing those fucking glasses that makes him look like a goddamn nerd at the library? Try to use the free internet. And his promo is my whole life. That's what people have talked about. My mom's an addict. My dad's an addict. My mom shot my dad. When was anyone saying this? Where were the signs that they would hold up? Your mom shot your dad. What?
My whole life, everyone was saying this until he got into the wrestling business.
And then they completely shut up.
And then no one ever said a word again.
Not again. And then he said, I've earned everything that I have. He was a heel for a year and a half. Fucking doing all that. They just like we didn't see it. They think we just didn't see that. And so they're trying to act like the most annoying heel on the roster at one point is now a sympathetic babyface in 3 weeks, because why? I don't even know. It's not like MJF and Roderick Strong is going to boost the buy rate. And now think about this. MJF is going to win. So now they've had Roderick Strong come out and say, well, goddamn, yeah, that's all that they've said is my parents were addicts and all made fun of this. And then he's going to get his ass kicked by the heel that was making fun of it. Meanwhile, Adam Cole's best friend is telling him, don't fuck with MJF. He'll kill you. So what the fuck?
I felt bad. Like Roddy, in a lot of ways, Roddy gave the promo of his life and no one cared. He spilled his guts out and the fans there didn't give a shit.
No, because they don't believe it anyway. Because all this, even if it's true, we don't know if it's, even if it's true, everything else they hear is complete horseshit. So that doesn't make sense. So why should this? And if they'd have been hearing it and nobody did anything about it for a year or so, then they might care because they might believe it. But since it comes up 2 weeks before the goddamn deal or a week or whatever, no.
If you're going to do an angle where the heel tells the lesser heel something like that, do you do it on a pre-tape or do you do it in front of the house so at least you get the moment?
But
it's very Christian Cage, which is kind of, very MJF.
Well, yeah, and as you see that, then if you tell the guy to his face, then unless the guy just hauls off and kicks your ass, then can we not
Should MJF come to the ring with drugs at the show in Newark?
You know what? Maybe some cocaine.
Pink cocaine.
Pink cocaine, yeah, and just sprinkle it all around. It's sort of like Gorgeous George's valet did the spraying the perfume. He could have the pink cocaine.
Oh.
I
Are you excited for MJF Roddy Strong?
Well, just as a wrestling match, yeah, it'll be probably the best thing on the show. But it's not going to sell a ticket. It's not going to sell a buy on its own to the pay-per-view. It's a waste of MJF and his potential drawing power if he was involved in something, or if he's not, just don't put him on this fucking show. But they almost have to because it's New York. But then I don't know. I don't know how they get themselves in these positions.
Everything they have done has been a waste of MJF for a good while now. So they got
and they can fuck that up too. Like, they've diminished Osprey. They still like him and cheer for him, but Ricochet's diminished. Adam Cole is moribund. So it's going to happen to MJF, and that's probably why he's staying away, to try to prolong it. Well, would you like to talk about this exciting indie film they shot in the middle of the wrestling program?
Which one?
The kidnapping. The kidnapping and the Reservoir Dogs homage tied to a chair in a warehouse scene. The only thing we missed was cutting the guy's ear off.
If you're going to do this kind of fucking schlocky stuff, it can't be Daniel Garcia, because he can't deliver the lines. Jack Perry sucks at being anything other than Jack Perry. You don't believe him? But Daniel Garcia just can't. The voice is a problem.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's yelling. He's yelling, but it's so preposterous to begin with that, I mean, could we, if it was De Niro and Pacino in here, but it was on a wrestling program where they're both wrestlers, and then we're expected to believe that suddenly they take a detour into kidnapping and Grand Theft Auto and doing it all on camera where it can be seen by the world on live television.
I can't get past the bad acting, because they saw this and said, okay, let's put this on the air. Because it was so ridiculous. It's like the kind of thing, well, the only person that likes it is the people that made it.
That's what I'm saying. Tony's television show, I said this at the top of the program, has now become for the people who want to be cinematographers, the people who want to be directors, people who want to be artistes or auteurs of some kind. There's some actors in there, some performance artists. I'm sure Aubriette is just dying to put some kind of musical dance routine together when they have and maybe the fucking Bob Mackie can start doing the gowns, and they'll have the June Taylor dancers. But this was, for the folks who were lucky enough not to see what went on, they did a video recap, because apparently on Collision, Garcia not only stole Jungle Jack's black painted scapegoat bread truck, but chained Jack Perry to the front of it and stole it out of the building, and he was running through barricades allegedly with Perry on the front of it. And they also stole Mac Daddy and the camera so that they could shoot this thing. Shoot that thing.
Well, that way they had at least they had that logic of, why is there someone there filming? It was because Garcia's friend was filming.
Yes, because Garcia's mad at old Jack Perry for whatever it was he did to Mac Daddy whenever he did it. So,
a few more years, Jack Perry's going to give Jon Moxley a run for his money in terms of being a badass afraid of nothing.
Well, I mean, yeah, because he scoffed at this whole thing. Basically, they show the footage of the kidnapping and the Grand Theft Auto and the fact that they got Mac Daddy and the camera with them. And then suddenly the camera is in a goddamn darkened warehouse, and the only light is from the scapegoat headlights, and there is Jack Perry tied to a chair and his mouth duct taped in the headlights. And again, it was Reservoir Dogs without cutting the guy's ear off and dumping gasoline on him. Garcia is screaming at fucking Perry for what he did to Mac Daddy and what he's done and what he wants him to do. And Perry is laughing at him because he's such a he's not scared of. I'm sorry, but I don't care what you think of this motherfucker. You take his fucking Hollywood bred ass and you have some asshole fucking kidnap him and tie him to a chair in a warehouse for real, and he's going to smother everybody in the room in his own shit. But he's laughing, and Garcia said, I know where you want me to go, and I'm never going to go there. So is this the first time in history that a motherfucker has kidnapped another son of a bitch and spent all the time with the son of a bitch tied in a chair telling him what he's not going to do to him? I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to fuck you up with this crowbar. I'm not going to cut you. I'm going to beat the shit out of your truck.
Here, film this. I want there to be a record of this. I'm not going to do anything to you.
He went, I'm not going to do anything to you. I'm going to beat the shit. And then he beats the shit out of the front of the truck that looks like it's been run off a goddamn cliff and set on fire anyway.
See, that's the thing. It's not even like his fancy car. The whole gimmick is it's a piece of shit car. And then it got beat up.
You couldn't tell. You couldn't tell what the difference was when he got finished. And then they walked out and left Jack Perry in the warehouse room all alone in the dark, laughing at them, tied to the chair. And before you give any further comment, Brian, the only way that this could have been topped in terms of preposterosity is that after they've had this whole fucking scene, there are people tied to chairs and duct taped and people being threatened with crowbars and screamed at, and this dramatic shooting of this thing in a Blair Witch Project kind of fucking cinematography. And then they cut to Renee Moxley Good sitting at a table, smiling, introducing a contract signing with Jericho and Ishii. Like nothing is wrong. Yes, folks, thank you. That kidnapping, yes, that in this state does carry a possibility of life imprisonment, but now we've got a contract signing. They didn't even to acknowledge.
What you just saw is horrible. Let's go to that contract signing.
Yes, what you saw was the only attempted murder that's not been perpetrated by my husband. Now let's go to this contract signing. Anything, but it just, hello, friends.
By the way, they left a camera for Jack Perry.
Yes, they did. So I wonder if he's going to shoot. How's he going to get loose from that chair?
Well, look, that was an astoundingly bad segment. And as I said earlier, it's almost like every segment is completely different than the one before it. And the tone and pace keeps changing. This next one, this contract signing, it was bad. And just when you thought it was over, it reached a whole new level of, I don't even know what. Bad isn't the word. Mediocre isn't the word. Just
awkward.
Weird. Why are they doing this? Who thought this was a good idea? But I'll throw it to you. Renee Moxley Good for the contract signing.
Well, remember I said actors, writers, directors, auteurs. Here was the cinematographer's chance to shine. Because they worked this work. They almost did it as good as WWE. They had to break the shot, though. They couldn't do a one-camera follow all the way through. Fucking amateurs. But they're sitting there at a table in the back, and it says time for the official contract signing for this match that's coming up on Saturday. It's Wednesday night. And Jericho won't sign it. He wants to take it to show his lawyer.
Well, again, too,
go ahead.
Coming off the previous kidnapping segment.
Yes.
When they go to the table, Jericho has that fake smile on his face. So.
Oh, well, yeah, that's what he does all the time now. I just assume people.
It's just weird, though. Again, coming off that segment, they're like, let's go to the next thing in the back. And there it is. And he's got the fakest smile on his face.
And it's frozen. It's just mooning. It's frozen there. But that's his thing. He can't react to anything else going on because he's got to do his fake shit. But the thing, and Renee said, oh, well, this was sent to your lawyer last week. Well, live in the now, Renee. It's all about now. And so they do the thing where he walks out of the room with the contract And the camera starts following him. And then suddenly, Ishii walks out of the room and is in the hallway about 15 feet behind him. And he sees that. And Jericho starts walking again, and Ishii's following him. And it gets more and more ridiculous when Jericho starts getting more and more nervous and starts walking a little faster, and he'll pull a garbage can in his way, and Ishii will bat it aside, and then he'll say, hey, to somebody, Ishii wants to talk to you, and Ishii will shove them away. And it's an attempt at cinema, like when the WWE is doing the Jey Uso out in the people, and they follow him through the breezeway, and then the big entrance. It's some kind of cinema they're trying to do here. But as Jericho starts walking up the stairs and then out into the breezeway up top, and then another camera has to intercept him because they couldn't figure out a way to make the whole thing work, and it's still happening. All he had to do was run from this crippled, potato-shaped man. They're just walking. And you can tell that Ishii can't walk any faster. It looked like it was all he could do to climb the stairs. And there is no reason for Jericho to be taking this path. If he's really trying to get away from somebody, he walked into the arena and to the ring. So if you were trying to get away from this fucking guy, what? And so they go all the way to the ring, and then Jericho's trying to beg off, say, well, I would sign the contract, but I don't have a pen. And then Ishii brings the pen out of his pocket and makes Jericho sign it. And at this point, here comes Big Bill and Brian Keith, and they jump Ishii and start kicking the shit out of him, and the fans are just staring. There's no heat, there's no emotion, there's no movement, there's no noise. They're just staring at what's going on. And then here comes Briscoe and Rocky. Because unlike the mascot, Ishii doesn't mind getting a helping hand when three people are kicking the shit out of him. So they run the heels off with the, boom, boom, boom. And then Ishii gives Jericho a brainbuster, and Jericho lays there motionless, and Ishii signs the contract for the match they're going to have, where now there's another heel just laying there on his fucking back. And as you said, just the oddness of Jericho had another idea. Oh, wouldn't it be cool if now we found out, no, it wouldn't. It would look stupid. But
that's his whole thing. That's his whole thing. Spinal Tap meets stupid.
And the only thing is, at least he's in a no-win situation, because there's no way that you're going to make Chris Jericho versus this, again, baked potato with arms and legs any kind of attraction. So making fun out of it may be the only recourse. But on this show, it was just, again, another odd, strange thing.
Well, there was still much, much more to go.
Yes, there was. Jamie Hayter can't get a whole promo out because old Julia Hart. Now Julia Hart she's going to change her name to Julia Tarantino. Or who was it that did From Dusk Till Dawn?
Oh, Robert Rodriguez.
There you go, Julia Rodriguez. She could be married to Rochelle.
Well, he was he's still alive. He's a really talented guy. Let's not
maybe
compare the two things.
Okay, so she's in a video. The videos keep cutting Jamie Hayter off now to the point where Jamie Hayter is saying, I don't know why that she keeps cutting me off. Well, she's not really cutting you off. The production truck is cutting you off because Julia Hart, but she may be able to make these videos, but she can't just goddamn broadcast them on Turner Broadcasting unless the production truck is making that move there. So I would start there in the truck as to find out. And sure enough, the promo is cut off by Julia Hart now she's either going to film school or somebody close to her is, and it's a low budget horror movie type of thing. She was shooting arrows into herself on the beach and on a football field. She was dead of arrow poisoning in a cheerleader outfit on a football field, and she's also wearing her hat. And by the way, when she is firing her arrows from her bow and arrow, her grip is wrong.
Her cheerleading uniform, like when she was with the Varsity Blondes?
Well, she was on a football field in a cheerleading uniform with arrows sticking out of her chest in a very brief scene, because she was shooting them, and they're red arrows, but they're landing in her own heart. She was shot several times with these arrows that she was shooting. And did I mention her fucking string grip is completely ass back? It's totally wrong. So she couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. She's gripping the string in between her index finger and her middle fuck you finger. And that'll just throw you completely off. What's going on with this? What is this? Is this another movie that you recognized? Last week you recognized they were taken off on some other movie or something.
I think the roster feels inspired and they have someone willing to finance all of their 2.5 to 3 minute dreams.
You know, I told Stace, I said the best video we ever did was the Leviathan video when she was managing Leviathan. It cost $150 and it actually got the guy over. Of course, we didn't license the music, but blow me, Godsmack, the statute of limitations has run out. These people are spending thousands of dollars, confuse people. Are you ready for our main event, Brian?
Oh, boy.
They presented as a main event in front of this building of very few people with a morgue-like atmosphere. It's the first time I've ever seen a wrestling match held in a sensory deprivation chamber. Pockets versus Wheeler Useless. Two skinny, bland guys with no charisma doing wrestling moves with no reaction from a crowd that doesn't care. And that's the paying crowd. The people that paid to go see it were unimpressed. What about some poor fucking bloke, some chap watch it on television? Go, seriously? Seriously? What are these two children?
What about the guy who redeems a free ticket and says, let me go check this out. I'll take my kid or something. Or I'll go with my buddies.
And then he thinks his kid got away from him and jumped in the ring. Junior, get the hell out of there. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I mean,
that wasn't Junior, sir. That's our Continental Champion.
This is what they're trying to compete with the WWE with. This is what they're trying to do at the main event of the Go Home TV for the pay-per-view. And they rang the bell with 12 minutes left in regulation, and you know they were going over. So they actually tried to have a match. And, you know, yes, you can train chimpanzees to do a variety of moves. And just the blandness and the nothingness of, I mean, and Wheeler's a ball of fire. Wheeler's goddamn MJF next to the other goof, but it was an embarrassing use of national television with two trained chimps having a pretend wrestling match. Kicking out a tombstone pile driver. They made a pile driver fucking deadly in 2 weeks over in the WWE land by having Randy Orton, a fucking star and a full-grown adult man, sell a shitty-looking pile driver. And these guys are kicking out of tombstone pile drivers, and their necks are the size of a stack of dimes. And did you see at one point when Wheeler on the floor gave Pockets a brainbuster on the barricade in front of the front row fans, and that got kind of a rise out of him because it was dangerous as fuck, and there's no way I'd have let this fucking clown try to do it to me. He's not fucking strong enough to pick me up to begin with. And Tony Schiavone at that point brought up, I find it interesting that Orange Cassidy is wearing black jeans tonight. He just got brainbustered on a metal fucking railing, and you're talking about the color of his pants. I wish I could attribute all this to drugs, but I don't think they're having the fun of the drugs.
I just noticed that dead man over there. He's wearing black pants.
Yes, he just... Well, you can't see probably because of the blood that's soaking them, but they were before they got stained with his carotid artery being cut. And then finally, Wheeler brings a chair in right in front of the referee who does nothing about it and swings at Pockets, and Pockets ducks and rolls him up 1, 2, 3. So a tombstone pile driver was not a finish, but a fucking roll up after the referee should have disqualified the thing to begin with because they can't figure out other ways to do it that make sense. Your thoughts on the match before we go to the afterbirth?
It was one of those, it was like watching one of those awkward women's matches that goes on too long because the crowd was dead. They weren't reacting to anything. A lot of people pointing the finger at the fact that Wheeler Yuta was in the main event, and other than Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson and Tony Khan, no one else has really seemed to take the Wheeler Yuta at that kind of level. But I think it's a two-way street here. I think Orange Cassidy gets a lot of the blame too. Orange Cassidy, the booking of Orange Cassidy, the use of Orange Cassidy. 5 years in, no one gives a fuck if his pants are black. It's the same guy who doesn't give a fuck, and we don't give a fuck.
Yeah, the way Tony was saying, it's like he's never worn black pants before. It's like, Harold always wants a second cup of coffee. And then, actually, one of the goofballs on color, Mac Daddy, was on color too, because the kidnapping was pre-taped.
Yeah, they didn't fire him after that. It was like,
they didn't fire him after he participated in the goddamn, but he had to bring the commentary back to it. By the way, he got that brain buster, but then Sockface had answered it by, well, I have seen him wear black pants on a few occasions, Tony. Like, I've got to be the expert. And even though nobody's going to know the difference, I have to correct you that, yes, he has worn them a few times. Because, of course, Sockface is paying attention to the color of another guy's fucking pants. And then Mac Daddy brought him back to common sense.
Maybe Mac Daddy's allowed to continue on commentary after the kidnapping because with Danielson gone, the disciplinary committee has been broken up.
True. Because since, I wonder how did they discipline the people that broke the head of the disciplinary committee's neck? So anyway, the afterbirth. Here comes Pac, and he levels Pockets. And then here comes the plumber and company, and they start kicking his shit. And remember, he told them, he told Briscoe, he told Rocky, he told all of his friends, don't come help me. Moxley 5-on-1, you better bring it, boy, do whatever you're going to do. Well, so they did. They beat the shit out of him. Marina Schaefer came in with duct tape. They stuck his hands in his pockets and duct taped his hands in his pockets. And I was cheering for him by this point. See, Moxley could even make me a fan of it, but they beat him up with his hands taped, and Moxley was, I guess he's been watching Dana White. He was open hand slapping him, but the announcers were calling him knockout punches, but he was slapping him. And Pockets at one point fought back with a couple of fake shin kicks, his fake shin kick deal. That's how he's fighting back from these 5 pads. So Moxley leveled him. And then they walked out and went to the back of the arena, leaving him laying there. And then here came Briscoe and Kyle and Rocky and Ishii, and they cut him loose. Because he asked for you, now don't come out and help me. Okay, motherfucker. How'd that work out for you? Dumb son of a bitch. And the heels are still in the back of the arena where there's no light, and they're trying to get an artistic shot of Moxley's bulbous, droopy face over the shoulder to see pockets in the ring, but there's no light back there. And they can't light the building in the back because there's no people in it. So to show that he is still defiant, and he knows, oh, what a defiant man. Pocket stands up, puts his sunglasses on, and puts his hands back in his pockets while standing in the ring looking at the people that just kicked the shit out of him and not making a move to do any goddamn thing about it. What a baby face. And that's the way they went off the air for the pay-per-view. So I guess now we know that he's told his friends not to help him. So all 5 of these people are just going to kick the shit out of him this time. And we're going to pay $50 to see it. And it's all fake anyway because this whole thing is silly. And do you think is the entire WWE office and roster and TKO organization blowing snot laughing at these idiots right now that are spending their money on this shit?
You know, I think WWE will always be WWE, and they'll always see any competition as something that's either under their thumb or something that needs to be put under. But it's impossible to watch this show and think that anyone has their shit together. I was about to say anyone in senior management. There is no senior management. You know, whatever you want to say about Vince being a dirty fucking pervert. And he is. In terms of a businessman, he was, you know, it really was the buck stops here with Vince. And my fucking cushion in my chair is making noise.
Oh, heaven. He got a whoopee cushion. Yeah, with Vince, it was the buck stops here. And with Tony, it's the bucks don't work.
That's the problem. And Tony doesn't recognize that he's not good at this. And Tony doesn't have anyone to turn to. And the people who know better will never tell Tony, you shouldn't do this. Instead, it's, well, maybe if you try this, or maybe if you do this, if you try this differently. No, it's everything. It's him. He can't do it. And Moxley, imagine if you were the head of anything and Jon Moxley wants creative control and you see what it is.
Oh, good Lord. Well, I haven't seen what it is yet. I don't know what the fuck this is.
Well, that is AEW Dynamite.
And that was the go-home show for the pay-per-view. And also, was it, the question is, I guess, was it the go-home show for the people that were watching it? Did they have to move?
Well, I was going to say, Jim, before we get to the ratings, you know, Full Gear is coming up. We just previewed it. And it's one of those rare AEW pay-per-views not named after a casino or some sort of event at a casino. And we know a casino that we could send everyone to virtually.
Well, we virtually can, and I thought you'd virtually never ask, because the casino, folks, if you want to go to a casino, sometimes you have to leave your home, you have to get in a plane, you have to go to Las Vegas or Atlantic City if you want to experience a casino with all the wonders the casino has to offer. Of course, now we can send you to a casino that doesn't have wall-to-wall hookers and a cheap buffet that you can get ptomaine, but you don't have to leave your home and you don't have to get on an airplane. You could go to a casino right in the privacy and comfort of your own home with DraftKings Casino. Because it's holidays on the house at DraftKings Casino, where it's the wonderful time of the year where that's what you think about. Thanksgiving, Christmas, that time of year. You don't have to think about loved ones and family and togetherness and sitting around the old Yule log. You need to think about betting some money on some sports and winning some money and having some hookers and drinking some alcohol and engaging in wild partying activity while being in the comfort of your own home. And the DraftKings Casino is right there for you, and they are welcoming new players just to get you hooked on this new thing called casinoing. A $100 casino credit instantly with just a $10 wager. So they're amplifying it, Brian, 10 times. Think of the greatest casino you've ever been in, and then think of 10 times that. 10 times the jackpots, 10 times the hookers, 10 times the Sammy Davis Jr. impersonators.
Again, there are no hookers or entertainment involved with this. There is just good old-fashioned casinoing.
Well, if you bet $100 Or if you bet $10, you get $100 instantly in casino credits. If you bet $100, then Frank Sinatra Jr. will come and sing "Come Fly With Me" to you personally.
Didn't he die a few years ago?
Over on the corner. Well, no, he's still got a contract with them, so they're enforcing it. They're tough out there at DraftKings.
There's no entertainment supplied as part of any. There's no deal. I mean, I don't even know what you're offering.
Well,
people.
no, I'll tell you what. DraftKings told Frank Jr. He said, "No, you can die all you want to, but your old man died in a few lounges too, but you're going to have to fulfill your contract. So if you bet $1,000 at DraftKings, then that means that you get Frank Sinatra Jr. for a song,
or
but
not,
right now,
or not.
everybody.
Let's just say or not.
Well, when he's knocking on your door, think what you're going to feel like. He say, "It's me,
It's
Frank.
a zombie.
It's cold out here. My legs are falling off because my bone is exposed."
All right, listen.
Everybody can get in on the action with a holiday reward every week. So sign up with the code Cornette. That's a new code because it's a special thing. Sign up with the code Cornette, CORNETTE, because the holiday cheer is here only on DraftKings Casino. $100 in casino credits with a $10 wager. And I think you can use the $100 against the hookers.
No.
Memoriam also.
There's no hookers involved in this.
You know, I can remember when it was just a flat $100 fee in Las Vegas if you found somebody walking across the casino floor. Oh. Now it could, there's all kinds of add-ons. Go with DraftKings Casino.
I don't know what's happening. It's cheaper. Right now. Yeah. Oh, no. Again, there's no hookers involved in this. The crown is yours, and is that part of this? Well, listen, someone is here. Maybe this will clarify on some things, or English applied somehow. Let's go.
1-800-GAMBLER. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 8.
And then I started it late. Let's go back to the beginning here.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. 21 and over. Physically present in Connecticut, Michigan, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, West Virginia only. Void in Ontario. Eligibility restrictions apply. New customers only. Opt-in required. Casino credits are non-withdrawable and expire in 168 hours. Terms at casino.draftkings.com/promos.
Well, I'm glad he cleared that up. But what about the hooker?
There is no hooker.
Is there a dead hooker in the bed? There's a dead hooker in the bed.
The hell was that?
That's my favorite scene in Four Rooms.
Oh, that again, yeah.
A dead hooker in the bed, according to Tim Roth.
All right, well, the crown is yours with DraftKings.
Yes,
once again,
certainly is.
The DraftKings Casino promo code. One more time, Jim, what's the code?
Cornette.
Well, Jim, let's find out, I guess, if the gamble paid off, or at least this week. The ratings for AEW Dynamite.
Well, I'm anxious to hear, but they've been, except for that a couple weeks ago when they got spanked by NXT, they've been in the 600s for the past, I don't know, what, couple of months now, down from 8 to 7, now to 6. Where are they at this week?
This week, AEW Dynamite on TBS, Wednesday, November 20th, 2024, 8 to 10:06 p.m. On average, AEW Dynamite watched by 640,000 viewers.
Ooh, okay. Well, not entirely unexpected because it's about what they've been doing, but probably not the best thing they could hear before the pay-per-view.
It is down 4% from last week's 666, the Mark of the Devil episode. And it is up 4% of the trailing, I should say, 4-week average of 614.
Jeez.
Let's go to the quarterly breakdown. These were compiled by WrestleNomics. Quarter 1, 8 to 8:15 p.m. The November Rain video and the start of the 8-man tag with Mark Davis, Powerhouse Hobbs, Ricochet, and Will Ospreay versus Don Callis' family with picture-in-picture, 747,000 viewers.
Okay, so again, they've even... What happened to that big lead-in they used to get?
Maybe the new Nielsen Holmes didn't like Big Bang Theory as much. Serious.
That's entirely possible. Because I don't like Big Bang Theory, but anyway,
sucks.
Go ahead.
Quarter two, 8:15, 8:30 p.m. Every time I say that, someone jumps in. No, Brian, it doesn't suck. You suck. No, that show sucks. And you suck.
A lot of suckage going on that show.
Quarter two, 8:15 to 8:30 p.m. The continuation of the 8-man tag match. The Death Riders and Darby Allin backstage promo. An ad break. The Hurt Syndicate Swerve Strickland angle in the parking lot, I believe. 671,000 viewers.
Gosh, okay, now we're getting more down to the meat of the matter. So 47, 29, that's 76,000 people left the big TV show. 671,000 were left. How many of them will leave before we get to the end? Oh boy, it's going to end up really shit.
Well, we got a quarter three, 8:30 to 8:45 p.m. The Adam Cole Kyle O'Reilly live promo. The Conglomeration's backstage promo.
You're trying to laugh.
I'm trying not to laugh. And the start of Sheeta versus Statlander with picture-in-picture. 634,000 viewers.
So that's from the top of the program, 113,000 people.
We go to quarter four, 8:45 to 9 p.m. The continuation of Sheeta versus Statlander. The post-match with Mercedes Moné and Camille. The Hurt Syndicate's backstage angle with a Swerve Strickland lookalike. An ad break. And Bobby Lashley versus Cheeseburger and Joe Keys. 667,000 viewers.
Okay, so we can hope that people tuned in to see the Hurt Syndicate, because that means that they're getting over in their stars. But then again, we can kind of curse that they saw what they saw, because it didn't do the Hurt Syndicate any favors. But the top of the hour is coming up, and the big assault with the logging chain. What did that do?
The big 9 o'clock hour, quarter five, 9 to 9:15 p.m. The post-match of the previous match with the Hurt Syndicate and Prince Nana and Swerve Strickland.
The previous match.
Also, the Mariah Mina Shirakawa backstage promo, or tits, I should say. Multiple tits. As well as the start of Claudio Castagnoli versus Darby Allin with picture-in-picture. 648,000 viewers.
Ouch. So they lost at the top of the hour because people had better things to do, I guess. And now they're not at the low point yet. That was quarter three. But I sense, because of the average, that we're about to take a trip south.
We go to quarter six, 9:15 and 9:30 p.m. Oh, here's something you forgot about. Oh, shit. The continuation of Darby versus Claudio. Private Party with AJ and Big Justice.
Oh, fuck. I forgot to go back. Remember, I said I was going to go back to something, but I was continuing the Hurt Syndicate. I didn't go back to it.
Well, let's finish the ratings and then we'll get your thoughts on that.
Well, just real quick, since you're right on it. So the fucking Costco guys are it's a fat fucking guy and his fat fucking son that go boom all the time.
Well, let's be nice. It's a kid. Let's be nice about it.
Well, but he's putting him on television, and they had a scripted interaction where they do their bit and they go boom. And no effort was made to explain to anybody who the fuck they are, what they do, or why they would be on this program, and why that this guy is wrestling QT Marshall. So that was the boom. They still didn't tell you. It's like, couldn't they show a video of them doing whatever it is the fuck they do? That's my question to you.
I don't know. Again, I'm not familiar with them. I'm not really big on TikTok, but a lot of people are. And apparently, if you're into Costco humor, I'm not really sure what it is.
But then they should show, here's what these people do, which is why they're on our program. Well, but then people would say, you mean that's all you got to do to get on this program?
Well, they were in quarter six with their backstage angle, MJF's promo, an ad break, and AJ and Big Justice's backstage promo. They got two segments.
Yeah, well, we're coming up, and then we got a big announcement, and then they announced it.
And Roderick Strong's ramp promo, 630,000 viewers.
That's not as bad as I thought. That's only another 18,000. Now they're at the low. They're 117,000 down from the start of the program, but boy, it don't look good for Pockets and old Wheeler.
Well, we go now to quarter 7, 9:30 to 9:45 p.m. Daniel Garcia and Jack Perry's backstage angle, as it's listed here.
This is what ran them off.
Backstage angle. That was backstage?
Angle. It was back in a goddamn warehouse in a field somewhere.
Chris Jericho and Tomohiro Ishii's backstage angle.
This is what ran them off.
The Conglomeration and the Learning Trees live angle.
This is what ran them off.
Followed by an ad break and Jamie Hayter's promo. 594,000 viewers.
Yep, that's what ran them off.
Well, you're maybe a little too confident because let's go to quarter 8. I remind you we have an overrun. Quarter 8, 9:45 to 10 p.m. The Julia Hart video. Orange Cassidy versus Wheeler Yuta with picture-in-picture. 549,000 viewers.
Oh.
6-minute overrun. The post-match with the Death Riders and the Conglomeration. 597,000 viewers.
So obviously, I don't think 48,000 people suddenly said, oh my God, it's Pockets and Wheeler. It was the top of the hour. What was scheduled to go on after them? Were we Modern Familying again that night? I believe that's when I recorded the overrun.
Yeah, usually it is.
Yeah. So they went from 747 at the start to 549 by the time that the people were fed up with the whole thing. That was 200,000 people out of 747,000. Jesus Christ, that's another 28 to 30%, isn't it?
It's a lot. It's
without making you get your calculator out. But Jesus, what did they expect? And that's 549,000 for that sloppy, rotten main event. Was not only the low part of the show, but by 50,000, almost 50,000 fucking people. Well, maybe they'll rematch it next week. Now that people have had a taste of it, it'll be hotter.
Well, we will see what next week brings, but on the topic of next week, or at least next episode, next Jim Cornette Experience, one of the topics we'll discuss will be AEW's schedule that they've announced so far for 2025. Step in the right direction, announcing dates in advance. Who would ever thunk?
And in smaller buildings.
So we'll talk about that, as well as Linda McMahon and the bumpy road she's on right now. But Jim, before we wrap things up, this is the Drive-Thru. How about some questions?
I would love some questions. What do you want to know?
Well, Jim, let's get to some questions. These were sent in to the Cult of Cornette Facebook group. This one was sent by Pedro Sambrano. Why did Vince not call Ric Flair the Nature Boy during his original run in WWF?
You know, that's a good question, and I don't know if anybody has asked that specific thing before. Do you think, knowing Vince as we know him now, was he still wrapped up? Well, people will think it's Rogers.
No, it can't be that.
You know, I don't. Maybe they couldn't trademark it. They weren't trademarking Flair. Why did he change the Road Warriors name to the Legion of Doom?
Yeah, see, I think it's more like that.
You know, just to make something less of what the people had done and established before and more of his own thing is really the only thing. Because I hadn't even noticed it, to be honest, because I never paid attention to look for it.
All right, so that's a non-answer, I guess we could say.
Well, I mean, what else am I supposed to say? There's a goddamn truck in my driveway.
Uh-oh.
They're delivering something. Wait, I ain't got my glasses on. Hold on.
This is devolving.
It's Amazon. They could be delivering anything.
All right, well, Jim, let's get to another question here.
I'm sick. I don't know. I have no idea why he didn't call him Nature Boy. What are you gonna browbeat me over it?
How much of that stuff did you watch when Flair first went there in '91? Obviously, you were talking to him about. He knew what you were up to. And
Yes,
you were up to things, so you were busy.
well, I was watching stuff that he was on and involved with, and the TV and the whole belt saga and everything. So yes, I did see that, but I just didn't notice the Nature Boy thing.
And did you think Vince blew it with the booking of Hogan versus Flair?
Huge. Because, putting them in the houses is something that he normally did. Michaels worked with Vader before they did SummerSlam, because he would have guys get, accustomed to each other. But the thing is, that was people that was already in his company. This was a special case that he understood, I think, the magnitude of Flair, but he didn't ever give the Crockett Promotions or WCW any credit for magnitude. So he didn't understand what he had. He felt like that he had to make Flair one of the stars rather than being an outsider. That's why it didn't last long. And then when they sued over the belt and everything, he's like, ah. But when they put Flair and Hogan in the houses, the people that wanted to see the dream match all bought tickets to see the dream match. And then, it should have been built to a WrestleMania, but Vince didn't think that WCW was that important.
I went to the first match at Madison Square Garden where they did a false finish where Flair won the belt, or Flair beat Hogan. Got a big pop. Yeah, you have to wonder how that affected things too. The fact that Flair was coming in as a heel outsider, but if you knew who he was, and a lot of people did, you might cheer for him against corny Hulk Hogan in late '91.
Oh God, I spent New York, Philly,
Yeah,
Baltimore, Chicago. Yeah, there were a lot of people that would have wanted to see Flair win at that point in those cities.
Jim, another question. This one was sent in the Cult of Cornette Facebook group by Evan Christian. Why did TNA switch from a traditional ring to the hexagonal? Is that how you say that?
Hexagonal.
Hexagonal, excuse me.
Hexagonal.
The hexagonal one during Jim's
tenure. As opposed to a parallelogram.
Well, why did they switch during your tenure? Never understood why they thought it was a good idea.
But they didn't switch. They already had it. When I got there, they had started with it, didn't they? Or did they?
I don't think they started with it.
They didn't start with it in Nashville when they were doing pay-per-view only, but then they started before they got on television, I think. But point being, it was... Well, I was just going to say they stole it from AAA, right? They stole it from Mexico, but who was the AAA was doing it in Mexico?
Yeah.
And Jeff was going down there at that point, and they were using some of the talent, and they thought it would differentiate themselves instantly visually from the WWE and what they were doing, and just give it a new updated look. And truthfully, I didn't hate how it looked, but it was very awkward. It was harder on the boys because with 6 shorter sets of ropes to hit, there wasn't as much give in the ropes. So it was great for springboard stuff and for the smaller guys to jump on them. But goddamn, it was like trying to hit the ropes. You're hitting a fucking wall. And conversely, because of the way it had to be constructed, you couldn't just have a long, uninterrupted, 1x12 or 2x12 board. It had to be constructed so you didn't have just the square and the parallelogram and the rectangle and all the stuff we were talking about earlier. So it was harder. It wasn't as good to bump in as a 4-sided ring. And a lot of times, when guys would first get there, it took a while to get used to it because especially unless you were a smaller guy, the distance you could run to go across the ring was shorter than what most guys were used to, and try to figure out how to take a turnbuckle And it didn't make enough difference just being different to justify trying to work around the whole goddamn thing, to me. But it was different.
Were there any big fans of it?
Amongst the boys or the fans?
Amongst the boys. Because, I mean, you're really kind of looking at it from, you're telling me the company perspective. As a fan, I always thought it looked kind of cool, but in practice, you kind of, I don't know, I kind of got sick of it. It made the whole company seem like a gimmick.
Yeah, well, I don't know that any of the boys were just, oh, I never want to work in another kind of ring, about it either. I think it was like, well, this is what we got. So, especially the creative guys will try to use it in some way. But a popular vote probably would have gone back to a regular ring.
I remember reading some quotes from some guys, maybe Harley Race or a few others that wrestling should only be 4 corners or whatever it is. Do you agree with that? Do you think there should never, the ring is the ring and that's it? Should it be anything that changes or advances?
Well, but again, they were trying to advance with that, but that was advancement for the sake of just being different rather than it making the matches better or the experience of working in the ring safer or more pleasurable, or what was the benefit? The only benefit was if that difference had led to a bunch of people checking out the show and what they were doing and getting hooked on the talent or whatever, and that didn't happen. So why do it? Why change the basketball court or the football field? How do you really change that to where that it's an advancement, or just changing something as a gimmick to change it?
What do you think of bringing back the hexagon ring as a gimmick, as an annual thing, or as some kind of, I don't know what you can really build to it.
Well, but
this man hates shapes. Let's put him in here.
That's the thing. Why would it be brought back for what purpose? Well, I can't beat him in just a 4-sided ring, but if I get that son of a bitch in a ring with 6 sides, he's mine. I mean, what advantage would it give anybody, or what would you do to a ring that it would need 6 sides in order to have that gimmick match or whatever? I mean, come back to me with more particulars.
All right, Jim, another question sent in via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group. This one was sent in by Tony
Khan?
Wenkelwitz.
Wenkelwitz?
I hope I'm getting that correct, Tony. It says he was an all-star contributor, whatever that entails. Are the Bloodline the greatest faction in history? Only comparison is 4 Horsemen for longevity and different members.
Longevity?
If not, where would you rank them as a faction and as a storyline in history?
Well, I don't have the date right in front of me when the Bloodline started, but remember the Horseman was only 3 years.
The original run, yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's the only one that you can really count. But I mean, again, greatest faction for drawing money, the Bloodline, yes. For actually, in-ring talent, I know, come on. And I'm not knocking, the Bloodline either set for in-ring talent, but when you had Ric Flair, Tully Blanchard, Arn Anderson, and Barry Windham on one side, and, there you've taken up 4 of the top 10 in-ring performer places in the business in one group, but greatest in terms of drawing money and the story and the interest they've gotten in the story, I think you can say the Blood. I mean, other factions, the NWO, it wasn't really the same as this. This wasn't a group of really individual wrestlers that suddenly came together to form a super group like goddamn Bread or something, right? This was an actual group of family members that found their way together twice. So it's not really a faction. More of it's that maybe that's why part of it is doing so well, because it's more of its own unique thing. This is more of a family thing with the, if 4 of the Von Erichs had ever gotten together, or which they did, I guess, Fritz, Kevin, Kerry, and David, or something like that than a faction of heels who were established as singles before they came together as a group. What do you think of that?
I think it's kind of reminiscent of things in World Class in terms of it's slow moving. There's a lot of people involved. It's always exciting, but it doesn't always seem to go someplace. But when you look back, it's like, oh yeah, this happened, and this happened, and this happened. In terms of money, most successful faction in history, just in terms of the storyline around it.
Yeah. So
it's not outrageous.
It's not a greatest, depending on what you're talking about, but it's in the conversation in all aspects.
Jim, this question was sent in via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group by Rory Melberg.
Oh, come on.
Leave Rory alone.
That cannot be a real human being's name.
Well, he has a real question here. When was the tag rope introduced?
Ooh. I don't know. Now, see, this is very interesting because when I first started watching wrestling and had only seen the local TV, here in the Tennessee territory, they didn't have tag ropes. Now, in Bruiser's show in Indianapolis, they had tag ropes, but they never used them. So, but that was a thing that some territories adopted and some didn't. The theory behind it is that in tag team matches, the legal tag for a tag team in a tag team match has always been the guy on the apron has to have both feet on the apron and his hand either holding the tag rope, or if there was no rope, his hand has to be on the top turnbuckle. He's got to be able to touch the turnbuckle. And the tag is made hand to hand over the top rope, not in between the second and third or whatever, but over the top rope. And that's the rules. And that's why I shit all over these guys that tag their toes and backslap each other, whatever. But the tag rope would have been invented right after tag team wrestling, which would have been, depending on the part of the country, mid to late 30s, early 40s. The first tag team match in Louisville was in 1943, but Tennessee beat it by 4 or 5 years. And it just depended on whether the territory and the promoter wanted to make it really legal, follow the rules to the letter, or didn't give a shit because they'd have to remember to tie a rope to the turnbuckle. Just put your hand on the fucking turnbuckle. I can hear them now. But in the Northeast, the tag rope was a big deal. And they had bigger rings. And they had more, because the thing about it was when you're holding one of those tag ropes in those big rings, if they had a 2 or 3 foot rope and you were a tall guy, you could be past halfway down the apron, still have the rope and stretch your arm out. And in the South, where they used the smaller rings because the buildings were smaller, if you had your hand on a turnbuckle, then the baby face could really milk and work for a tag, and the heel could keep him away, and it wasn't like his partner could reach all the way across the goddamn ring. But as far as where it originated and exactly when, that's probably been lost to time.
Do you like the tag rope as a tool for the heels to choke the baby faces?
Well, yes, that's another thing you could do with it. When you get the guy to corner, wrap the tag rope around the guy's neck, and people will be screaming at the referee, and blah, blah, blah. Or whatever the case. I mean, you use what you got.
All right, Jim, our next question sent via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group was sent in by Cody Cantrell.
Now, wait a minute. Did Ken and Lisa have a spawn?
Well, I don't know about that, but I think this is a very interesting question. Jim, do you think the Marine that beat up Shawn Michaels is aware of his place in wrestling history? That's never been asked before. That's very interesting. Does the Marine who beat up Shawn Michaels know who he beat up?
Well, he knows who he beat up because there were police reports and, activity about it. And part of the bone of contention was that, well, there's these fucking wrestlers coming into this goddamn local bar from out of town, these big shots, and this fucking little weasel with the long hair said her said whatever about my girlfriend or the girl working there, or whatever the original conflict started over. So he knows he beat up a big-time WWF guy. But now the question is, and this is a good one, has he kept up with it in the almost 30 years afterwards that people are still talking about it and talking about him and debating it? Because some people still think it was 9 Marines. No, it was 1 Marine with a bunch of friends standing back and watched him because Michaels was fucking soused anyway and couldn't defend himself to begin with, and would have got shit kicked out of him by this Marine if he was stone cold sober to begin with. And as I've mentioned, Davey Boy couldn't help because he was in the back seat of a 2-door car, and he was trapped because Davey was in no condition to drive, and Michaels was in the passenger seat in the front. And who was it? Waltman?
I believe so. I believe so.
So here's how bad a shape they were in. A poor Sean Waltman was a designated driver. And Davey couldn't get out of the back seat, leaning the seat up and trying to get out of the door when they pulled Michaels out and kicked shit out of him. So, you know that, yes, it was the 1 Marine. He did know that he beat up Shawn Michaels and that Shawn Michaels was a WWF guy. But as to whether he's kept up afterwards to where it's still a subject of conversation and people still talk about him and he's been lauded like that on all these documentaries or whatever, that's a good question. You know, one of these investigative types, there was police reports that his name is out there on record. They ought to track him down and say, hey, on pay-per-view for charity, you want a rematch. What do you think?
You think when he gets together at like the reunion, he's like, yeah, I did that to his eye. It was me.
No, he's a Marine. I'm sure he'd be an upstanding fellow who wouldn't lie, and everybody knows that Michaels was cross-eyed beforehand.
Was he?
He was starting to be. It was leaning in that direction.
See, I never noticed it until it was just like, bam, there it is.
It was leaning that way.
Huh.
It was starting to drift.
All right, well, Jim, another question sent in by the Cult of Cornette Facebook group. This one sent in by Kevin Smith. In the territory days, which would be considered worse? Kicking out at 1 or kicking out just as the 3 count is made?
What? Okay,
I guess a wrestler going off script or just trying to keep themselves over? I'm not sure what he's saying.
Well, no,
exactly.
okay, well, I understand what he's kind of going for. Which is more disrespectful in terms of some guys, when they've got to do the job, they're going to kick out right at 3 just to not stay down any longer than necessary. You feel me what I'm saying?
Hogan did that to the Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 6.
Yeah. And then kicking out at 1 is what a lot of these dim bulbs have done lately on these big moves after they've already been covered for 2 counts. It's completely ass backwards, but then suddenly they get a big move and they kick out at 1 to show their fighting spirit or whatever. I don't know. That's just the point is there's a place for both that would be called for. Neither of those things are disrespectful if they're in the finish, agreed to by the participants beforehand and called for by either them or the booker, leaving them up to their devices, or the booker giving them the finish. You would kick out at 1 earlier in the match when, you know, the process is just beginning and, oh, you got a vicious slam applied there, boom, but he only got a 1 count, so that then you've got a place to go when they start getting 2 counts. And they might build something with, you're going to hit him this time and get a 1 count, and this time and get a 2 count, and the next time you hit him with it, it's going to be almost a 3, and that's the story that we're telling, whatever. And then there's also, I remember hearing this in a lot of finishes from the time I first got into business. You kick out right at 3 when you want to rematch it or you want to save somebody. Yes, let's say you want Brian to beat Jim, but you want it to be a quick one, and then Jim may pop up and have something to say about it, or, you know, there'll be a rematch because you caught me unawares, whatever. So the booker would say, kick out right at 3. You just barely got it. And we're going to do a bone of contention of this, whatever. So there's reasons why both of those things would be called for, but there's also a reason, as we just described, how they're abused. When somebody doesn't want to do a job and kicks out where he's putting his own doubt in where it wasn't supposed to be, or where the guy kicks out at 1 because now the kids think that, I guess that's a thing they do in video games after they've had a 45-minute match, the guy's got 18 2 counts on him, and then suddenly they kick out at 1. That doesn't make any sense. But they can do them.
Do you think there's ever a place for, again, a specific time and place, not all the time by anyone, for a babyface who's been taking a real ass kicking to kick out at 1 late in the match?
Well, it's commensurate with what's been done to him. It's if it's some lackadaisical cover where the guy's, the heel is laying over him and flexing with one hand and just being a prick. Yeah, then let the babyface kicks out and get the fuck off of me, motherfucker. But if it's a goddamn superplex off the top rope on an already worn down opponent, suddenly he only gets a 1 count. Well, then what sense does that make, and how is that building anything?
All right, well, our next question, Jim, sent via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group by Benjamin Barron. What's Jim's thoughts about...
Wait a minute, didn't they make a movie about him?
That's Benjamin Button you were thinking of.
Oh.
What's Jim's thoughts about Jey Uso being the top WWE merch seller?
Oh, that's the end of the question. Okay, well, my thoughts with that are connected to why they're using him in such a position when, goddamn, we've talked about it a million times, is his place in the bloodline, and it's been integral because he really is a member of the family, but goddamn, that sloppy work is killing me. But they've hit on something here. The people like Yeet, and they're with the entrance, and they like being a part of the whole thing, the waving the hands, the flashing the lights, and the wearing the Yeet shirt. So it doesn't surprise me. It's audience participation, which especially the modern WWE audience is loving, whether they sing the lines in the song or sing the notes in the song or do the chants at the right time or Yeet. They're loving getting involved in this. So I'm not surprised because again, he's pretty fresh because he hadn't been a babyface that featured on top as a single that incredibly long when Cody's been there and they've had multiple items of merchandise for him for 3 years now. And Punk's a huge merchandise seller, but there's been a lot of Punk merchandise. So this is new and it's hot, so it's not surprising to me.
Do you think it's right for a wrestling company, no matter who it is, to ride the wave of your biggest merch seller, even if it's not someone who works the way you want them to in the ring?
Well, I mean, it's not like he's goddamn one of these fucking jackoffs on AEW and he just sucks. He could clean up a few things that wouldn't hurt his yeeting or working his gimmick, just the sloppy punches and a little better timing. But he's not like Big Daddy or Bulldog Bob Brown. So they're not having to hold their nose that badly. But as an in-ring performer, when you stack him up with maybe against Roman Reigns or Yokozuna or Fatu / Rikishi, some of the other members of the family, I'm not as thrilled.
I mean, that is why the Ultimate Warrior got the push he got, was he started outselling Hulk Hogan in merch for a while there.
Well, he got the push he got because he looked like that, and Vince gave him the opportunity to sell that much merchandise. Because the only reason you would have signed that son of a bitch is for him to stand there and look at him anyway. Every time he moved, he either hurt somebody or it looked like shit. But Vince loved that look.
Jim, our next question via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group was sent in by Brad Spellich.
You're making all this up.
That is his name. It's right here with his picture. It's his name. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. I don't know if I'm
Got
saying
his
it right.
social security number? What
Please
kind
stop.
of dossier do you have on these people?
All right, well, here's his question.
You better be using Express VPN there, fella.
Brad.
Spellage. Well, you can spell it.
Or it could be Spellick, but I believe it's Spellage. But what were the last things, the Midnight, Yoko, or any of Jim's clients would do before going to the ring? Like, before leaving the locker room, would someone say a couple of things to get everyone pumped to go? A la what a team coach or captain would do? Anything like that. Any sort of, when you have a regular person you're going to the ring with, let alone a tag team, does anyone just have some bands get together and pray before they go on stage? Or, anything?
Actually, well, me and the Midnight, whether it was Bobby and Dennis or Bobby and Stan, were generally, the two of us were browbeating Bobby Eaton about something in a fun, frolicky way, or, just winding him up or taking the piss out of him or whatever. There was nothing set that we would do. It's not like anybody was, like I've seen the thing where Goldberg would fire himself up by headbutting the lockers and all that shit. And he'd go out and, well, fuck, no wonder he was potatoing people. We're goddamn telling jokes. Maybe, I'll stick my tennis racket in between my legs with the handle facing out and walk up behind Bobby so the handle pokes him in the butt. And Corny, what the fuck? And he's got to go out. And,
the question's kind of like, did Yokozuna ever just turn around and regularly say, all right, it's bonsai time. You ready?
No, he would, okay, here we go. Or he might say to Fuji, okay, uncle, you first. Or what, but there was no goddamn routine. There's no, to Dick Murdoch, there was no telling what he might do. He had a thing every time we would go out in the arena, if he would, in the breezeway in the back, if he would pass a payphone, he would stick his finger in the fucking change slot and see if anybody left a quarter. But I mean, no, there was no, because we were doing this, it wasn't like, I mean, people would stretch and they'd warm up in the locker room, or they'd do some calisthenics, or Stan would do his, little martial arts stances or whatever, just to warm up a little bit while cutting up verbally. But it was not a big, at least for me and anybody, that I'd make sure I'd taken my glasses off and put them somewhere I could find when I got back. And that there was no big extravagant thing we went through. We did it all the fucking time. It wasn't a big goddamn nerve-wracking thing to go out and just have a match.
Do you remember anyone like having something, even if it was like an annoying thing, like they always said the same thing right before they went out or anything?
I remember Jimmy Valiant's warm up when he was the Boogie Woogie Man in the mid '80s. Would consist of him walking up to a wall and putting his palms flat on it and doing push-ups while he was standing but he was pushing up on the wall. So it was like a Batman thing, climbing the bat rope. If you turned it, and then he would shake his hands at the wrists and do ha-cha, ha-cha, and that would be his warm-up.
But no one had any kind of big thing where just, all right.
I'm trying to think.
Let's do it. Like they always said the same thing. No example at all ever.
I guess, Terry Garvin would go through 4 or 5 ring boys.
Oh, see, that's awful. What kind of joke is that to make right now?
Oh, come on.
Horrible. What a horrible
What kind of a joke is it? Well, sexual assault is in. It's all over the cabinet, president's cabinet. That's a requirement.
What kind of things did you and your clients, what did they say actually to you before going out? I don't know, but let's talk about the pervert. But Jim, thank you for your question, Brad.
Yeah, Brad.
Jim, another couple questions before we wrap things up. This one, via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group, was sent by Scott Lawson. What was Jim's go-to for a burger in Johnson City if Wendy's wasn't available? Was he a Powell's guy?
I remember Powell's. I never stopped there, maybe a time or two, but I remember seeing the signs. But actually, there was never really a point in time where Wendy's wasn't available. It was like, oh God, all the Wendy's suddenly closed. The ptomaine outbreak, so I've got to go to another place. But in Kingsport, Tennessee, it wasn't burgers, but there was a place called Rush Street, like from Chicago, Rush Street, that was like a casual dining, like an Applebee's type of thing, something like that, that had the best fucking pizza. And anytime I would be in Kingsport, if I had the time, I would try to go there to get the pizza from Rush Street. And otherwise, and see, remember, this is 30 years ago also in East Tennessee. They didn't have the plethora of options that they have now. There was no Cookout back then. There was no Smash Burger. There was no Five Guys. I think I've told you in Morristown, where I lived, the only place to get anything, any kind of fast food after 11 o'clock at night was fucking Crystal, which is fate worse than death. So I would actually go hungry rather than patronize that place. But yes, the Tri-City, Johnson City had, what was the name of the place? That was when you got off the highway and came through Johnson City, right as you went down to turn right to go to Freedom Hall in Johnson City to go to the matches, there was a restaurant that was kind of like an Applebee's also on the right-hand side. And that's where whenever any of the boys' cars would break down, coincidentally, like that time Buddy Landell and Tommy Rich, their car broke down right in front of that restaurant. And they had to go in and drink for an hour and a half before they could get the car started. But that was a place also that was nice in that time period.
All right, Jim, our final question here this week was sent via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group, and people sending questions via email to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com. We'll try to get to yours next time. We're going to try to keep getting as many questions as possible on here.
Yeah, we're going to get as many questions as we can until we come up with an answer.
Jim, this one was sent in by Trent Whitney.
Oh, come on.
If Madison Square Garden had been built
What?
I'm sorry, I'm sure it's a good question. Hold on. If Madison Square Garden had been built in Kansas City instead of New York City, would Harley have been able to capitalize on it?
What?
As much as Vince was able to? Or would the building have enticed Vern to Kansas City
What?
in lieu of Minneapolis?
What the fuck?
Or even Vince himself?
What?
We may not be able to end on that question.
Why?
I'm so sorry to laugh.
We may not be able to end on it, but I might finish all over it. What is it? Okay, where do I start? No, Vern wouldn't have come to Kansas City because Madison Square Garden was there, because they still wouldn't have been able to put fucking 20,000 people in the fucking building in Kansas City for a wrestling match, whatever building it was. Kansas City never drew 20,000 people. It's probably not going to. And secondly, would Vince have come to Kansas? It's not about the building. It's about your product and the town you're running. And yes, Madison Square Garden is the world's most famous arena because it's in New York, which is one of the world's most famous places. And it was one of the biggest arenas. There's been 4 of them. But at each point, it was one of the biggest arenas in the country. And in a major media market, a lot of shit goes on there. But just because you took Madison Square Garden and put it into fucking downtown Tucson doesn't mean that suddenly 20,000 people are going to start coming to wrestling in Tucson. Have I articulated that as plainly as I can? Brian, it's not that. And Kansas City Kemper Arena holds, I believe, or held, it might not be there anymore, but in the 80s, held probably 16,000 people, but they weren't running it out of the fucking Heart of America wrestling office with Bulldog Bob Brown and Bob Geigel in charge.
Bob Geigel often said, if I only had Madison Square Garden.
If I only had the garden. Then I could make Kansas City the hub of wrestling. And
oh my God, it would have been a wrestling war if Vern and Vince If everyone just descended upon Kansas City to get the garden?
Run every week. And here's another thing. You know where the other Madison Square Garden is, don't you?
Phoenix, Arizona.
Phoenix, Arizona. They have a building named Madison Square Garden, and they had wrestling in it. It didn't draw 20,000 people.
All right, our final question here this week. And thank you for sending your question, Trent.
Yeah. Now that we've taken all the piss out of you, Trent.
Our final question sent via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group from Kenneth Burris. I saw Jim at a WWF house show in Connecticut.
Oh, now, wait a minute. It started out like, I know who you are and I saw what you did. What did he see me do?
I saw Jim at a WWF house show in Connecticut right before the Dudley Boys debut. Bubba was a dick to a kid outside, and I had heard that the office had to tell him he wasn't in ECW anymore. Heel or not, he had to be cool to the fans. Does Jim remember any of this? Also, Jim got his pants ripped off in matches. St. Bernard High School in 1995-96. Thanks. I was a cult member before we had a title. Cornette for life. That's very nice.
So was he thanking me for having my pants ripped off?
Also, he says it's not a question, it's a statement. Also, Jim got his pants ripped off at the matches. Well, I guess those matches. Where Bubba was a dick to a fan.
I was deep pants so many times in the course of my career that I can't really narrow it down to one. Well, first of all, to answer his first question, I don't remember that. If I wasn't involved directly in it, I don't know why anybody would have told me if it did happen. And, I would normally say, oh, it's probably bullshit, except there were instances where, if some kid would complain to either one of the agents or Tony Gurria or somebody at the building, and then the building guy comes, hey, so-and-so wouldn't give the autograph or whatever, like happened with the Ultimate Warrior that time. They showed the footage of Vince making him apologize.
It's a work, Jim. It's a work. It's a work.
Yeah. So
Vince's life philosophy
could possibly happen, but I don't remember anything about it as far as that. But at the same point, there could be some element of truth in that also, because I remember Bubba Ray's part of his thing in ECW, just cussing those fans out. They heavily frowned on you using vulgarities and profane language either in the building, in the arena during the matches, or outside when you were going to and fro, especially in that era of the WWF. They might have got on him about that and said, hey, this ain't ACW. This ain't ECW, and that ain't going to fly here. Yeah, I mean, any of these things are possible.
Who are the wrestlers, let's say after the territory period, so 1990 on, any wrestlers you ever had to deal with who you had a problem where they were kind of, not just heelish, but there were problems with them dealing with fans?
We had to tell Jimmy Del Rey a couple times because he was trying so hard after he had toiled in obscurity for 15 years and suddenly got a spot where he was trying so hard to be a heel. Jimmy, Jesus Christ, calm down a little bit. No reason to go too far. And, just every once in a while, especially when a guy would first start getting used and first started getting pushed, especially if he was a heel, he would go as far as he could, would do it everything. And then promoter, booker, whoever would have to rein him in like, Jesus Christ, calm down a little bit. We can't go that far.
All right. Well, a boring episode to a boring end to a boring episode, I should say. And with that, the drive-thru is closed.
I keep saying, then this son of a bitch came out with a fucking grappling hook, and we had to take him down and chain him to the front of a fucking bread truck and run him through a goddamn barricade.
Like, were there just guys you ever heard about that, for no good reason, they would just beat on fans? How the fans always have the story, I was minding my own business and the wrestler attacked me. Were there any instances where that really did happen?
No, well, with no provocation, no. With slight provocation every once in a while, and with medium provocation more often than not. But no, none of the boys were ever just going to go out at random and just start wailing on some of the fans, or just they're standing there innocently taking a picture and suddenly the heel starts fucking beating them about the head and face. That never happened. It was always, what about going off on them? Because that's what this guy's talking about with Bubba Ray Dudley. And actually,
That's what was in the whole Beckley court case. It was about everything you said to the guy in the back, too.
Well, yeah, but the cuss out that I gave him was after the throwing of the marker and the punching of him in the face by Stan and all of the physical stuff that went on. That was window dressing. Now, if Bubba had just gone up, fuck you and fuck your mother and fuck your fucking whore mother and blah, 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 that may have, who knows? Hey, you're fat. Well, fuck your whore mother. I don't know. But all the defense that you mentioned of so many people who have sued or complained or whatever in a legal situation about the heel wrestlers. Yeah, I was minding my own business and he just began striking me for no reason. You always find out the guy was drunk. The guy grabbed a handful of hair. The guy kicked the guy in the shins. The guy came first and tried to fucking punch somebody or whatever. Because I think a lot of the fans today have watched the footage of Bruiser Brody or the Sheik in Japan going through the goddamn, crowd and causing havoc and think that they were doing that. In America, most of the people might have run from Brody or the Sheik, but somebody would have goddamn stood their ground and you'd have had a lawsuit. They didn't do that in the buildings in America. Either that or it was the fight with Sheik and Abby or whoever threw the building and they were keeping an eye out for each other. And then even in Japan, you see nobody's getting knocked out. Terry Funk would run through the crowd and whack people over the head with his chaps, right? Is the chaps that he wore on his Western pants. And that didn't do anybody any damage. So I can't think of a time where any of the guys just went out in the crowd in any territory, anywhere, just went out in the crowd and started wailing on one of the fans for no provocation, didn't get pegged with a
Bruise Brothers.
battery.
Bruise Brothers.
When did they do that?
I don't know. My memories of Ron and Don Harrison. They're just running through the crowd punching fans.
Well, no, it was always, now, provocation may have been slight. It may have been like, I could have let that go, but fuck it. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but I don't think I can't remember anybody just deciding to do it for people just standing there innocently. But it's always listed in the lawsuit. It's in my Associated Press article from Altoona. The guy said I was just standing there at the railing quietly taking pictures when he began striking me over the head with his tennis racket. When in actuality, he had come over the rail and waist-locked Bobby Eaton, and Bobby was trying to fucking get him off of him, and I was just assisting in that effort.
Well, with that effort, the drive-thru is closed. It sucks. I just don't have it in me. I'm in too much pain. See, even that. The Experience in a few days, wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Of course, we have the big AEW Full Gear pay-per-view, as well as the big Linda McMahon nominated for Education Secretary, and so much more to talk about on The Experience. Go through the archive, patreon.com/Cornette. $5 a month gets you access to the archive. And of course, the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. Send your questions. CornyDriveThru at email. CornyDriveThru at gmail.com or via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group.
You got to email to Gmail.
The next time we put a post up in
and
the
you'll
group,
get a female.
You can follow Jim on Twitter at @TheJimCornette. You can follow me at Great Brian Last. The 605 Super Podcast, the Mothership, and of course, the Wrestling News, wherever you find your favorite podcast. On Twitter, Superpodcast, at Superpodcast. This is all over the fucking place. Cornette's Collectibles and Jim Cornette.
It's fucking dark. Just send me some money to JimCornette.com. I'll save you some time.
That's right. Save some time and save your ass with the loves of Stephen P. New, 877-50-STEVE. His song returns next week, but it's dark outside and we got to get the hell out of here. For Jim Cornette, I'm the Great Brian Last. You see, I don't even have it. Tally ho.